Sidebar Cantina, the podcast where we talk about Star Wars, pop culture, Office Space references, or whatever the fuck we feel like talking about. I'm Mr. Jason Roskam. With me here each and every single week, the paper jam to my PC load letter, Dave Martin. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Jason.
How are you?
I love referencing one of the best Office movies ever.
So I brought that up for a specific reason, because I'm looking at an email that I got earlier today. So we're going to get into this when we talk about our weeks, but I've been actively looking at the job market lately.
Right.
And one of these companies that I was potentially interested in doing business with had emailed me this list of their requirements, expectations, criteria, things like that. And, a lot of it's the traditional stuff that you'll see, like this required qualifications and experience. You get citizenship, bachelor's degree in computer science, information systems, blah, 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 experience with programming languages, including Python, blah, 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 blah. Then, this long-ass list. And about 3/4 down, they've got demonstrated performance addressing PC load letter errors. And then it goes right into knowledge of information security principles, blah, blah, blah. So
it's almost like they slid it in there just because.
Yeah,
let's see what, we want the right people applying for this. Mm-hmm. Let's see if they catch it.
Oh yeah.
Because I would definitely talk about that if I ever got a job interview with a place like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I noticed in particular you wanted to know about PC load letters.
Yeah.
Well, I brought a baseball bat with me to handle such things.
Yeah. Or I do own a baseball bat, and I'm also very experienced with
gangster rap.
Yes, very experienced with gangster rap. Also, paper jam errors, things of that nature.
Yes.
My friend Michael will help me out. But
why don't you just go by Mike?
Right. Well, I had the name first. He's the one who sucks. Or no, why should I change my name? He's the one who sucks.
Exactly.
So anyway, you may or may not notice that we are doing remote once again because the apparent COVID scares are still there. I shared an office last week with a guy who ended up testing positive. Dude was fucking in bad shape last week too. He was in the office for 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. We were in the office together, and he looked like death. I'm like, dude, you all right? He's like, no. And I just this is the kind of guy he's out sick a lot. He's known as patient zero around the office because he always gets sick. So I'm like, all right, it's his usual. He gets allergies too, so it's probably his fucking allergies or something. No. He sent me a message 2 days ago. He's like, yeah, I'm positive for COVID. I'm like, well, fuck. And then I get a call. Then I get a call this morning like, you sir, you are in quarantine. Like, yeah, okay, great.
Yeah, the best part was this morning was the text message was like, hey, oh, by the way, we're doing dinner before the show. Right. And I'm like, hooray!
Yep. You were very excited.
I was excited. And then literally a minute later, he's like, yeah, about that. I just got a phone call that says I was exposed. I'm going to be in quarantine. And I'm like, boo.
Yeah, so, sad face.
Sad face indeed. I miss my pops. I miss being in the studio. I miss your shiny head.
Sacred Jedi
pops. Yeah. Yeah, so hopefully next week you'll be back here and we'll be live and in person once again. But until then, what are we talking about this week, Dave?
We're talking about a little movie called Dune, based on a little book that I have right here in my hot little hand, which you probably can't hear me with. I'm blocking the microphone. But yeah, we're going to talk about Dune. Patreon voted.
That's right. Yeah, the patrons decided because we had asked them, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to talk about the old movie? Do you want us to talk about the book? Do you want us to talk about the new movie? And overwhelmingly, they said the new movie. So we are talking about Dune from just last year. It was October of 21.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to get into. And we're going to have two very unique perspectives on this, I think, based on my utter lack of knowledge of the entire Dune series. And you, obviously, are a fan of the novels. So
indeed.
So yeah, we'll do that. But before we do that, we got a lot of business to take care of first. Should we talk about Patreon first?
I think you should talk about Patreon.
I will talk about Patreon. If you're enjoying the Sidebar Cantina's content, consider becoming one of our Patreon supporters. For as little as $1 a month, you can support this podcast and help make it possible for us to continue to bring you quality content week after week. We'd like to give a huge shout out to our current patrons: Shotgun Mark, Frank Kolovich, I don't know anymore, Frederick Martin, Lord Helmet Fire, Scott and Kim from the Used and Abused podcast, Ivo G, Kristen Roskam, Nick from Swede Studios, Catherine Rennick, my wonderful mother-in-law, Patricia Goodstein, Don Solsky, Nick Schaefer, David Schmuck, General Chinobi, Wally Frogmore, Tony Ferrari, Brady Big Lovin', and our latest patron, Dragon Buddy. We appreciate each and every one of you. If you'd like to consider becoming a Patreon supporter, you can find us at patreon.com/thesidebarcantina. Our Patreon page is a great place to give us your opinions regarding show topics and the direction of the podcast in general. Currently, we are running a poll asking our patrons to submit specific bands or artists for us to feature on our podcast. The submission with the most votes will be our show topic, so head on over to Patreon and make your voice heard. And just really quick about that, so it's not a poll that's up right now, it's just a post that I have, and it's like, hey, we're going to cover either a specific band or artist. Put...
Poll.
Are you okay?
A poll, or
yeah, a poll, you know,
or a
So
post.
smooth.
but anyway, we're gonna right now it's not a poll, it's just a post, and it's put anybody that you want us to talk about, and then we're gonna take those names and we're gonna vote. Not a lot of people have posted on that yet, so right now we've got like fucking Rebecca Black, the Dixie Chicks, and fucking Bruce Willis's jazz band. Those are like the only three things that people have posted so far. So unless you want to hear a whole show about one of those three, get on fucking Patreon and select somebody. I know people want us to talk about Tool. I know people want us to talk about other artists. So for fuck's sake, get on there and vote for something other than Rebecca Black, the Dixie Chicks, or the Bruce Willis Jazz Band.
Is Rebecca Black the one that came up with the? Is that the, like, she was a teenager, had the Friday song?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
It's Friday, gotta get down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend.
It was like, oh God. I think we.
Though she did get
Okay.
hot later on, and then she kind of turned into like a lesbian, so all kinds of weird stuff going on with her. But anyway, for the love of God, get on fucking Patreon and give us some names of artists, because ultimately we're going to pull every artist from these comments and then make a poll out of it and then have you vote on that. So
I wish you wouldn't say that word. Can we change that to something else?
No, that's what it is. It's a poll.
So smooth.
Oh God.
So anyway, thank you again to all of our listeners and supporters. You are the reason why we do this. Hold on. You, there we go. You are the reason why we do this. And that's all I got to say about that.
I love
David?
I love the Bodie McBoatface situation. It's
I don't understand what that means.
you don't know Bodie McBoatface?
No.
Like, they put on a list to vote for. It was the name of something. I think it was the name of a boat, or that they wanted to christen.
Who's they?
It was, I don't know if it was a Coast Guard cutter or it was something. They're like, okay, we're gonna leave it to the people to fucking. What do you want to name this boat? And they let people fucking go in, and one of the options was Bodie McBoatface,
And that one?
and it fucking got the most votes, because why wouldn't it? It's the
Right.
fucking perfect name.
We're going to end up talking about fucking Rebecca Black on this show, aren't we?
They is them. It's a science vessel. Thank you, Dragon Buddy.
Oh my God.
Yeah, a science vessel.
What have we done? We've given our patrons too much power, I think.
I don't disagree, especially after the fucking what was that other movie with
Boat
Cuba
Trip?
Gooding Jr.? Yeah,
Speaking
that,
of boats, yeah, boat trip.
yeah, that fucking. Ugh. Anyway, I'm going to talk about Red 5.
You
for
should talk
a
about
hot,
Red
a
5.
hot minute.
Okay.
Hello in the chat to all of our Red 5 family that are in the chat. Hello, everyone.
Uh-huh.
I would list them, but I know I'd miss somebody because there's a lot going on in the chat. But I'm going to first put up a disclaimer. If the teleprompter has typos, Luna Girl apologizes in advance because I read exactly what's on here. So it's not her fault.
Well, I was going to say, she can apologize all she wants, but you're still going to read it as written, right?
Factually correct.
There you go.
So here we go. Here we grow again. That was on purpose. Here we grow again. The Red 5 network is expanding into the gaming world.
Yeah.
Yeah, Learner Girl just told us about this in our pre-show meeting. So gamers from all parts of the network are currently planning this new branch, which will soon be live on Twitch. Stay tuned for deets and subscribe to Red 5 Network Gaming, all one word, on Twitch. So it's Red 5, the number 5, Network Gaming, all one word, on Twitch.
Nice.
Probably be cool to put that in like the show notes for what's on YouTube. Can we do that?
Those are already kind of done.
God
but
damn it,
for-
Jason.
For next week, I can certainly do that. Look, dude, I just copy and paste whatever I had the week before. So
We need to remedy that because you keep cutting and pasting the same mistakes over and
well,
over.
why
again.
don't you or Luna Girl make a new document in our Google Drive that's got all the pertinent links that are all up to date, and then I'll just copy and paste those.
What he said. Let's do that. We're gonna have more Red 5 Network news after the show.
All right, fair enough. So, we do a segment on the show every week called This or That, where our social media director, Luna Girl, puts up a poll on our Instagram. What is her Instagram, Dave?
At the Sidebar Cantina.
She gives you two options. You select an option, and we go over the results here on the show. And being a Dune episode, she kind of went sci-fi movies that have multiple, like either they have remakes or follow-on series, things like that. You'll get the idea once we get going. So that being said, jumping right in, first we're looking at Planet of the Apes, the 1968 version or the 2001 version.
God damn you, dirty apes. I don't know if I chose. What was the other the more modern one? Not the most modern one because there's been.
Well, yeah, because there's been some within the past 10, 12 years, but we're
Yeah.
talking the 2001 Marky Mark version, where
I think I'd take that one over the 1968 version.
I remember that one had a really good trailer, and I think I also picked that one. However, the original movie did win 63% to 37%.
I'm 37?
Yes, for the 2001 version.
Nice. I honestly the 60 I don't hate that. I think the 68 version is like one of those classics.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for that. So I don't hate it.
Indeed. And she put up a poll on Twitter as well. 80% went with the 68 version over the
Nice.
2001 version.
Okay.
Moving on to Battlestar Galactica. We've got the original 1978 series versus the 2004 reboot series. I personally went with the 2004 series because that's the only one I ever watched. I watched like the first 2.5 seasons of that. I never saw the original series. I knew of it. I remember there was a Battlestar Galactica portion of the old Universal Studios tour ride, but I never saw the original series. It seemed pretty silly at the time, so I went with the 2004.
Same.
Yep, and this was a close one, but the 78 did win 53% to 47%.
Interesting. Everyone's having that nostalgic feel with this week's This or That.
Yeah, and then
I think that's going to play in later for, one of your picks.
For sure. And then the Twitter poll was dead heat, 50% for both. All right, now we got Star Trek. So I don't know why she did this, but she did the original series versus Voyager. Why Voyager, Kelly? Why not the Next Generation? Because if this was between the original series and Next Generation would have won, hands down for me.
Well, that's
And
probably why
in
she
all
did
the
it.
polls. Yeah, so
To make it more competitive.
yeah, I was not a huge fan of Voyager, but I fucking love Next Generation, so I went with the original series on this one.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, obviously, I've said it on the pod before. I'm not a series guy when it comes to Star Wars or Star Trek rather.
Mhm.
I like the movies. I enjoy everything that I enjoy pretty much all the movies.
Yeah.
Honestly, even the most recent ones. I think the Star Trek movies are done right, even with the original characters.
Yeah.
Because it maintains some of that campiness. But if I had to pick any of the series, I would probably be Next Generation because, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. But if I didn't say before, the original series won 77% to 23% and 70% to 30% on Twitter. So the Twitter results are actually mirroring pretty well what the Instagram folks are saying. Star Wars. So we have the original trilogy versus the sequel trilogy. We don't even have to say this. The results were 95% for the original trilogy versus 5% for the sequel trilogy. I might be the only vote for the sequel trilogy because I got an angry message over the weekend from Lunar Girl, like, what the fuck? So here's the deal. When I was doing the fucking, the Instagram poll, my finger slipped. And you can't go back and change your fucking answers. So I'm like scrolling through and then I like click. I thought I was like going to like pull the screen down a little bit. I don't know what the fuck I was doing, but I accidentally clicked the sequel trilogy by mistake. And yeah, I would have picked the original trilogy, obviously, like everybody else, but it was a slip of the finger. And that's the only problem with these Instagram things. You can't go back and you can't change once you make a vote. So sad face. Helmet Fire said he voted. So he's probably the guy that's always voting for the very unpopular stuff in these polls. So anyway, and 100% for the original trilogy on Twitter.
Absolutely.
Finally, we have Dune, the 1984 movie versus the 2021 movie. This poll came out before I actually saw the new movie, but I still picked the new movie because I heard the original was trash.
Oh yeah, dude. We'll get into it.
Okay.
We will absolutely get into it. But the 1980s version of this is absolute hot garbage.
Yep.
Not good.
And 78% of the people agreed with you because they picked the 2021 version on Instagram, and on Twitter, 60% to 40% voted for the 2021 version. And that is this week's This or That. Thanks again,
That
Luna
many
Girl.
people picked the 80s version one?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I have no frame of reference. I actually just watched the trailer for it this morning for the original, and I'm like, wow. I mean, it looked kind of ambitious for that year, because what did we say, it was 84, but it also didn't look good at the same time. So
it had nothing to do with the aesthetics. It just like it was not the story. Anyway,
I don't know. Again, we'll get into that because you know more about that than me. So we ready to get into our weeks?
Yes.
All right. So we kind of alluded to this last week, and then again at the top of the show. I have been looking away from the military life. I'm considering retiring. I've been looking at other jobs. I went on a job interview last week, and we kind of vaguely referenced it. I was like freaking the fuck out. Called you up and like, dude, what the fuck do I wear?
Right.
I don't know what's going on. I've never done any of this before, because my 26 years of my life has been dedicated to the military, and that's it. And just the whole idea of doing something else scares the hell out of me. And quite frankly, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So it's been a good process, though. It hasn't been as intimidating as I thought it was going to be. Come to find out, civilians are actually nice people and easy to talk to. You
haven't even gotten into it yet, but no, it's good. That's good. You're having success, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked for you right now.
And we'll probably have some more updates on that in next week's episode. So I am enlisted. What?
No, he thought you re-enlisted.
Oh,
He's retirement eligible right now.
Like
so he can push the button whenever he wants.
Yeah, I've got 21 years of active service, so I can punch whenever.
There's no ADSC for what he's doing right now, so he's good.
Yep. So, as some people have already mentioned in the chat, I have new glasses on this week. So,
which don't look like BCGs, by the way.
No, and they look a lot better in person. On video, it's kind of hard to tell, but they're pretty modern. They're actually Oakleys.
Nice.
And but yeah, I got the progressive lenses we talked about because my reading distance has been shit lately, and my distance has been crap forever. But yeah, so I had to get these new glasses, paid a pretty nice amount of money for them. I got the progressive lenses, and it's taken some getting used to, for sure. Like, you can't just like look at an angle anymore at things with glasses like this because it gets all fucking fuzzy unless you're at the right distance. So I'm really having to train myself. If I want to see something in a distance, I have to like keep my head straight and kind of look like a robot.
You get used to it. You figure out like where, like just how to angle yourself just right. And but the trick for me, because my house is like it's full of stairs. Mm-hmm. Like you can't go anywhere in my house without stairs.
Dude, yeah, I fucking almost fell down a flight of stairs the first day.
Like you can't, like it's looking down through the progressives. Now your depth perception is so off that like when you go to walk downstairs, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, no, that totally happened to me on the first day because the building that I work in, you have to go up a flight of stairs to go to the bathroom. And me, I piss all day, every day. So I'm constantly going up and down the stairs and coming down the stairs that first day. I like go to step and I'm like, oh shit, there's not actually a step right there. And yeah, could have been bad.
Yeah.
So
Yep, it'll take a minute, but yeah, it's worth it once you get used to it. It's better than having to fucking swap glasses all the time, which is the alternative, and that's
Right.
and you don't see the line. See, can't see the line, can you, Russ?
Mm-hmm. So besides that, the only other thing, so I haven't. I've been on a bit of a healthy kick lately, where it's almost time to start going to the gun show again. Almost,
Yeah.
but I've been eating healthy, been going to the gym 5 days a week, and one of the things that I've been trying to do is like eat a lot of salads, but I need like stuff to put in it. So I do like spinach, like green beans, some other stuff, and I always put like a meat in there. And typically I do tuna. All right, love tuna. I've always eaten a lot of tuna. Well, a lot of people have been getting on me lately. Like, you can't eat tuna more than once or twice a week because of mercury. Blah 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 blah. Sorry, chat distraction. Anyway, so people have been getting on me about eating too much tuna because apparently it's bad for you if you eat too much. It's great for you, I guess, like once or twice a week, but beyond that, then you're like poisoning yourself with mercury. I don't fucking know. So I'm doing research on like good fishes to eat and put in salads, and like one of the recommendations that I came across is oily fish. Oily fish are really good for you, good for the heart. And then I'm like, well, what the fuck counts as oily? Like I don't know what that means because they didn't go into detail. Doing some further research, they're talking things like salmon, sardines, anchovies. So I'm like, I have never in my life had a sardine or an anchovy. Costco happens to sell them in like massive bulky packages. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to try it. So I bought a container of fucking sardines and a container of anchovies. Started with the sardines. Pretty damn good. Like, I don't know why I've never had this before, but I put the sardines, I kind of cut them up, put them in my salad. Fucking perfect. Got to the anchovies. Holy shit. Now, again, I've never had an anchovy in my life. Are they supposed to be like eating a salt shaker? Like, are they supposed to be so fucking salty that you can only have like one and be like, okay, that's my sodium for the fucking week?
I'm assuming so because they're like highly preserved. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's what it's supposed to be.
Like, it tasted like I was biting into a stick of salt when I fucking went to go have the anchovy.
That could be good. I mean, I like salt.
Dude, this was a lot. Like, I could feel my heart like fucking racing. Like, holy shit, my blood pressure just rose like fucking 20% just by eating these things. So the anchovies are probably going to be a no-go for me. I might feed the rest of my cat. But yeah, sardines. Who'd have thought?
Let your
They're pretty
cat
good.
have a heart attack.
No big loss, honestly. But yeah, that's been my week. Been looking for jobs and eating a lot of fish. Ladies.
That explains the note.
Yes.
That explains the note.
Yeah, the fish smell doesn't bother me. So anyway, that's been my week. What are you up to, Dave?
I literally, so I can't tell you what my entire week was because it's gone. But I can tell you what yesterday was like. So yesterday in the greater Northeast area, it was one of those days where, hey, it's April. So we're going to have a nice 63-degree day with the sun shiny and all that other stuff. And it's going to be great for the opening weekend of baseball.
Woohoo!
And then, but Sunday, it's going to be 48 degrees and, scattered showers.
Mm-hmm. Typical Jersey spring.
Yeah. So, all right, cool, whatever. So we got we had tickets to the Phillies game on Sunday. And we got there early because there was like this lunch thing. And while we were standing in line for the lunch thing, it fucking snowed. It snowed for like 5 minutes. We were just standing there going like, what the actual fuck is happening right now? Like my first game of the year and it's snowing. And it's just like,
it's like a bad omen.
Like, God damn it. Right. So we're like, okay, whatever. It is what it is. So we were like, we went had a wander around the park, and then we went up to our seats, and we sat in our seats. Which, by the by, the girl who sang the national anthem yesterday was ridiculous.
Good.
It was fantastic. And she looked like she was like in 7th grade. Like you just saw it's like kid. standing there, you're thinking like, oh, yeah, it was kids opening weekend, right? So it was like kids giveaways, and they had kids around the bases and signing autographs with the players on the field and stuff like that. So it was all kid stuff.
Yeah.
And so they had a kid to sing the national anthem, and she gets out there and she's belts out this like really, really strong performance in national anthem. I was super, super impressed.
Nice. Probably like a local kid from like a local high school.
Yeah,
from
Western, some West Philadelphia school.
Born and raised
on a playground is where she spent most of her days. Didn't slap the shit out of anybody though.
Sad face.
Yeah. Well, at least not that we saw. Not that we saw. But yeah, it was super impressive. But yeah, then after that, it was basically bracing yourself for the fucking this 20-mile-an-hour cold as shit wind with scattered rain blowing on you. And needless to say, Kathy and I didn't last very long.
Right.
Because we're like, yeah, you know what? We're going to come back in a couple weeks anyway. So hopefully the weather will be better then. So ended up coming home early from that. Besides the fact that I had a paper to write, and so school is like, I'm learning some really cool stuff, and I'll talk about one of the things in a second. But there was like this reading assignment that you have this reading, and then you have this additional reading, and then we have to write, an 800-word brief every week, right? So no smashing of the buttons. You can just touch it though. Just touch it. It's okay. We give you permission. Just touch it. So anyway,
I'm
like
not saying a thing.
So anyway, you have to write this 800-word brief with the APA format and all that bullshit, right? And you have to have scholarly, peer reviewed, all this other whatever. And the topic that it was, I based how I was going to write the paper on a additional reading assignment that they had given us, which turns out was completely different from what the intent of the paper was. I'd done this a couple weeks ago too. Like I had written a paper that was completely off of the rubric.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah, I had to rewrite it. Well, this time you're a lot of this, because you're doing it online, you're teaching it to yourself, right? So you have to read and comprehend what the material is, not for testing purposes, because you have to write to an intelligent level about it. So I ended up having to cram, like basically learning this information about cognitive mapping into yesterday afternoon, which was compounded by the fact that the master's was not finished yet. So I was distracted by the masters, which ironically, a lot of the chapter we just read was about attention and divided attention. So
sweet irony.
I know. So I got the masters on, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to focus anyway. I'm going to finish watching the masters. So that by then it's like 6:00 in the afternoon. And then I start reading this other thing and realize that I don't have any fucking clue. I don't know this subject matter enough to fucking write about it. So now I'm going into other YouTube stuff with like UC Berkeley and doing all this stuff with cognitive mapping, and taught myself what I needed to do to be able to speak knowledgeably in a briefing about it, which I ended up doing digital cockpit interface with enunciations and shit like that. In fact, it's really, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I was up till fucking the wee hours of the night. I submitted it on time, but due to the amount of caffeine that I had to intake to fucking make it to the submission time, I had a tough time going to sleep. So I'm running on maybe 2 hours of sleep, maybe. Oof. Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm going to be a little bit sporadic today, more so than usual. But here's the thing, and I'm going to talk about this like really, really quick, but it's so interesting. Like, one of the things that we're learning about with this cognitive mapping thing is it's basically how your brain understands like spatial awareness, right? And what your brain does to do that. and there's a part of your brain in the hippocampus. And basically, it maps out, right, with these with neurons, like little neuron firings for areas, and determines like where the walls are, right? So there's
Okay.
particular areas. It's called actually um, grid cells. Sorry, jeez, I wrote it down in a note so I could say it out loud. They're called grid cells, right? And the grid cells have place cells and barrier cells, and it's all this different things. And it's basically, so when you're sitting in a room, how you have your spatial awareness of where you are in the room, like right now, you know where the door is and things like that. That happens because your brain is basically mapping that stuff out so that you can get up and be able to have that spatial awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're learning about the parts of the brain that are actually doing that. And you don't have to see like to do it. Like there's actual input from your brain without external input to do it. It's super, super fascinating. And there's a lot of really cool studies that talk about it. But one of the interesting things is like in these grid cells, there's like layers of them, right? So think of like a GPS map, like a layer, like there's one layer of a GPS map, and then there's like map 2, then map 3, then map 4, and each one of them. Or think of our old software we used to use in the jet, right? Where each one had different resolutions.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Each map had different resolutions. Well, our brain has the same thing. There's different resolutions of that map. Right.
Okay.
All the way up to 4. The ratio between those maps is 1.42. So it made me, when I was thinking about it, right, which is, it's just such a strange number, right? I'm like, 42, right? 42 is the answer. 42 is the answer, right? So this could be the question, like how, your brain's internal mapping,
it's your brain's perception of the universe,
right,
so to speak.
Yeah, it's 1.421. So you got 42 bookended by 1. Fascinating. But it also, like, it's one of those things too that like when you're in a space like this, like in the room, and ever hear that thing, like if you walk through a doorway, sometimes you'll forget something.
Oh yeah.
Like that what I just described makes sense to that actual action. Like think about it. If your brain is now recalculating, like rerouting, right? Your brain's rerouting to something else. Now it's using its basically its thinking power to recalculate this new room that you're in, right? Using that same map structure, then yeah, it's doing that and not thinking about what you were getting up to go do. Right. So it just made me think about all this shit, which is what happens when it's fucking 11:30 at night and you're trying to teach yourself some shit like this. So anyway, that was my week learning. It is super, super fascinating stuff.
I feel very educated.
Yeah, learn something new every day.
It's like every time I would go on a check ride with you, you always said, I always want to make sure you learn something every time we fly together.
There you go. See, so you learn something. 1.421.
Indeed. Life, the universe, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you need a break or anything before we get into our main topic?
No.
Okay. All right, so let's get into it. Dune 2021.
Yes.
It was just released October 22nd, 2021. And actually, I meant to look up. I'm pretty sure it was a same-day theatrical release and HBO Max release. Because, again, during COVID, it's a lot of these companies, especially like Warner Brothers and HBO Max, they were releasing a lot of things like at the same time. You had to pay a little bit extra, had to pay a premium for a lot of these movies. I think Disney was the first one to do that with the live action Mulan. Chat, correct me if I'm wrong. So they released it on their streaming service, but you had to pay like a little bit extra.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a little bit extra. It was like shit. It was like buying the movie. Honestly, it was like if you went to the store and bought it.
Okay.
That's how much it was, because we did it. We did that for Mulan.
Right, and we're already being corrected in the chat. Thank you, Big Lovin'. It was not initially available on HBO Max. So, but yeah, released in theaters. It was delayed. It was supposed to release November of 2020. It was ready to go, but because of COVID and by the end of 2020, theaters were still not open for business, on a wide basis. So they're like, yep. Let's delay it because we know all about that with Top Gun. And
yep. I'm pretty sure that we saw in the theater, we saw a preview for Dune when we saw Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, that's right.
Because I remember being super excited about seeing the preview for it. I'm like, oh shit. Because I remember when we were talking about the director and you had said, oh yeah, he's the guy that did this or this. So I remember having that conversation.
Yeah, he's the director. Since you're talking about it, was Denis Villeneuve. He's French. He did Arrival and the new Blade Runner movie, the Blade Runner 2049. So he's got some sci-fi experience, and I know doing some research, he wanted to get those under his belt before tackling Dune. So he's fairly young director, fairly new to the whole directing game, but yeah. All right, now somebody else is saying it was on HBO Max on release day. So get your shit together, chat.
I'm pretty sure it was an HBO Max release date.
But it had a budget of $165 million, which honestly, after watching it, I'm thinking that was it for the budget because, like, effects-wise, it looks like they put a pretty penny into all of these fucking effects.
Yeah.
Combined with marketing, they estimated around $300 million. Between the budget and the marketing, ended up making $400 million worldwide. So it made money, made a profit. Wasn't a huge profit, but you can chalk a lot of that up to, again, COVID, like we talked about. But it released fairly quickly on home video, I think just this January. Blu-ray, DVD, direct digital, and apparently it sold extremely well right out the gate when it came out on digital. So very, very successful overall, given the situation. So I'm happy to hear that because we're going to talk about the sequel that's now in the works later on. So directed by, like I said, Denis Villeneuve, however the fuck you pronounce that. Music by Hans Zimmer, the legendary Hans Zimmer. Lot of really good movie scores under his belt, and I gotta say, the fucking score for this movie was wild. It was pretty awesome, and it really fit for what they were doing.
There was a level of intensity that I was pretty surprised with.
Yeah,
and was happy. I was happy with it.
Yeah, there was points like very intense music. There's, like half of it's like these just like loud horns, just like shouting at you, when all these fucking scenes are going on. But again, it works. Fantastic score. I mean, he's no John Williams, but who is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, it's based off of the 1965 novel by Frank Herbert, which you have prominently displayed multiple times.
I have my 40th anniversary edition right here for referencing in case we need, in case I forget something.
Oh, I'm sure something will come up that you're going to want to look at. But yeah, Herbert, so he actually died in 1986 after writing 6 Dune novels at the age of 65. Apparently he had some form of cancer. I think it was pancreatic. And then his son carried on the Dune novels along with Kevin J. Anderson, who us Star Wars fans know as the guy who wrote the Jedi Academy trilogy from the old Legends material. So he teamed with the son of Frank Herbert to make like 20 more fucking books or like 12 books, some shit like that.
Yeah,
it was all like prequels, I guess.
It was, yeah. Yes.
Okay. Have you read any of those?
Yes.
Okay. You don't sound very excited about it.
I don't remember. I literally, I don't remember. Those penguins have fucking drowned. Like after you said that, I'm like, fuck yeah, I remember those. And then no, I don't. No, I don't.
So obviously the book was a huge success. And then with Star Wars coming into the fray in 1977, movie studios are like, oh yeah, this is a thing that we can work with. And then in 1984, we got our first adaptation of Dune with the Dune 1984 movie that we kind of alluded to at the beginning of the show. Never seen it myself, but I heard it was pretty bad. The only thing I know about that is it was directed by David Lynch, and it's got the guy, it was fucking Gordon from The Police. before he went off and did his own solo music career, was in it. But yeah, other than that, don't know dick about this movie.
It was wretched. I did not. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it here in a minute because there'll be some. Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, and then in doing my research, apparently there was a Dune series in 2000 on the Sci-Fi Network. I had zero visibility on this. Had no idea this existed at all. Is that something that you saw?
No,
No,
I did
okay.
not. I didn't see any of it.
Apparently, it was actually well liked by Dune fans. Again, no idea who was in it. Didn't know anything about it. And then, of course, we come to the modern times. Paramount Pictures tried to make a movie based on this for the longest time. They tried to purchase the rights in 2008, and they went through a bunch of like directors and drafts, and then eventually just shit canned the whole project in 2013. So they're like, "No, fuck it, this isn't gonna work. We're out." Then enter Legendary Pictures along with Warner Brothers in 2016, and they're like, "We want the rights to this. We'll make a good movie," and that is where we are today. They scooped up the rights, and now we have Dune 2021 by Legendary Pictures. And they've made quite a few really, really good movies over the years. Specifically, the Legendary Pictures brand. So you just Google them; it's a whole shitload of stuff. And
Right.
some kind of stinkers too, but mostly they're associated with pretty good good IPs and good movies and whatnot.
Indeed.
So we normally talk about our history when we talk about things like this. For me, none. I am going into this with zero knowledge of anything Dune related. So when I watched this for the first time over the weekend, completely fresh. Like I'm watching this brand new as a person who's never heard of this before in their life. So that's the perspective you're going to get from me. But Dave, I know you have a different perspective.
Oh yeah, I've literally this was one of the first sci-fi books I ever read. I was obviously 10 years old, or yeah, this book was written 10 years before I was even born, right? So I forget how old I was, honestly, when I first got this book in my hand. It was I really enjoyed the characters, and I enjoyed the storytelling. And this kind of set the stage for what like science fiction, and honestly it created the baseline for what my Star Wars fandom was going to be. Because even though this is different than Star Wars, there's a lot of similarity to the structure. Even if you think about it, the politics, and the movie doesn't necessarily get into it the same way as the book does, and we can talk about that a little bit. But
I do want to hear differences too, like how this movie is different from the book.
But yeah, there's definitely there's some similarities in how Star Wars story is told to what Dune is. Now, like you said, Dune starts getting, after so many books, like it starts trailing off and doesn't get nearly as good. But this one in particular, I've read this copy probably 3 times. I've listened to it at least twice in the car, maybe 3 times, and I have a smaller copy that I've read at least 2 or 3 times. It's a great book. It's one of those books that I'll pick up and read if I need to like clear my head for something. It's like, okay, I know this story inside and out, but I'm going to read it and let myself be lost in it.
Sure.
Because I'm so comfortable with it. So I do have a good story about Dune.
Okay.
Just the reading of it. So in 93, the summer of 93, we got our you get your reading list for high school, right? You had your summer reading list, and my summer reading
did that.
Yeah, so most people didn't, but I was a voracious reader, right? So I fucking I always read the stuff that was on there, and this particular year, Dune was on there, and I'm like, oh fuck! And by this point, like by my senior year of high school, I've already read Dune a couple of times,
right?
So I'm like, fuck, easy day. I already had the book, don't have to worry about it, and a lot of my friends that were going to be in this particular class were like, oh no, there's a movie out. there's a movie that's out. We're gonna watch this movie. And the movie had been 10 years old by this time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool. You do you, right? So they watch the movie, sit down to take the test, right? It's like day one in this. It was Mrs. Nixon's English class, right? And she's notoriously hard.
Yeah.
Right? She's just old, cranky old lady, right?
Yeah. I miss teachers like that.
Yeah, she was just like real scratchy voice and just you're pissing me off. Like just like really just seemed like she hated kids and hated teaching and hated you.
But she'd been doing it for like 40 years, probably.
She'd been doing it like she was a witch, right? So she'd been doing it for an eternity. The joke was that she rode to school on a Harley. So we sit down day one to take the fucking test, and I read the book. I didn't watch the movie for this.
Yeah.
I read the book. So I blow through this test and fucking turn it in. I'm the only one. It was so obvious that I was the only one who actually read the book because she failed everyone else.
Oof.
And I got 100 on it.
Nice.
And she stood there in front of the room and was like, do you know why this person, why Dave got 100? Because he read the book. Everyone else, you're answering these questions like you watched that movie. That's why you failed.
Right.
Because you watched the movie. Like she deliberately made the test. So if you watch the fucking movie, she set the tone for the entire rest of the year. And it was our senior year too. Like she ended up being she ended up being a good teacher.
Yeah.
She was a character though.
Oh, it sounds like it.
Yeah, that was Dune fucking got me a good grade. It's starting off good with her in a class that could have went horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And I watched the movie later, but I watched it in chunks because it's still a couple hours long.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest complaints with the 80s movie, so we're going to talk about the 2021.
Yep.
But my biggest complaints with the 80s movies were it eliminated, you could tell that they eliminated, they made a longer movie. And I think even in a Wikipedia article, it talks about that, where they made like a 3-hour long movie and then they cut big parts of it out. I think so in order to tell the story by cutting the big parts of that out, it's they just killed the story. Right. I don't think that they captured what Dune was at all. I think they just missed. It was like an arrow they shot and it was straight, but it was straight towards something else, and it wasn't towards the story that I thought it was trying to be told there. And it missed the mark on so much stuff.
Okay.
And it did. It had the wrong focus areas, like for me anyway, and I think for most people. I'm curious to see what that got on for Rotten Tomatoes.
The original, from what I read, it got lambasted pretty hard by the critics.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And then it failed box office wise. I don't think it even made its budget back. Yeah,
because this book, it's a pretty popular book. I mean, you figure in '65, this is before Star Wars.
Yeah.
This is. You're writing something, you're telling a story and envisioning things that, aside from Asimov, who I think was writing, similar science fiction and a couple other writers, there's a lot of stuff in here that's pretty groundbreaking.
Yeah. And I gotta say, as I'm watching this, knowing that the novel came out 10 years before Star Wars, 12 years, I'm really curious how much of this novel influenced George's story. And what we ended up seeing on screen, because there are a lot of similarities. I mean, case in point, the very first thing that I can think of is the idea of an emperor, right? You've got this space civilization. They have an emperor at the helm that's talked about, but you never see him. So already I'm seeing the similarities with Star Wars. I'm like, oh, okay. So we're doing this. But,
I think it's important as we go through this. Now there's going to be a part 2. Okay.
Yes.
So as we get into this, you not knowing the story, I'm going to assume that you don't want to know what happens next.
I'd rather not,
Okay.
unless I decide to read the book before the next movie comes out. Because I'll say this, just to kind of get us started on the conversation. I really enjoyed this movie, like watching it. I've seen it twice now over the last 3 days, and yeah, I thought it was great. Now, I'm gonna nitpick a few areas, and there's gonna be some critiques that I have, but overall, fantastic experience. I was fucking mesmerized by parts of this movie. Just eyes agape, just like trying to soak everything in that's going on screen, because visually this is quite possibly the best looking movie I have ever seen in my life.
Wow.
Like effects wise, everything else, just like visually just stunning. And like we talked about with the score before, the score was incredible. It fit perfectly with the movie, and I'm just mesmerized the whole time watching this. And we broke it up into 2 nights. We watched the first half Saturday night and the second half Sunday night. And like I was kind of on the edge of my seat by the end of the night Saturday night. I'm like, fuck, I want to finish this, but we had to break it up for time purposes. But yeah, no, I was in awe of this movie. Yeah, really, really enjoyed the overall experience. So I'll start with that.
That's awesome.
Before we get into some of the details.
That makes me happy.
Yeah. Now, so the question I have for you right out the gate, because one of the first things that we see is right in the title sequence, they say Dune Part 1. So they're obviously alluding to the fact that there's going to be a Part 2.
Right.
Does this movie only cover half of the book? And is Part 2 the other half?
It gets to in this book, it gets to about page 280, 281.
Out of how many? Oh shit! So right about halfway.
It's right about halfway.
Okay, and that's good. And you know what? I'm perfectly fine with that, because quite frankly, after watching this, I almost felt like, man, this probably would have been better as a, like a streaming series, like a Mandalorian, or fucking pick your sci-fi fantasy streaming shows that are like 10 episodes, an hour long each, because it seems like there's so much in here that it feels like there's probably a shitload of stuff from the book that they had to leave out for time constraints.
And that's true. There is a lot there, and I'll go on record right off the bat as saying that I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed how they told the story. I found myself. My thing was like watching it with Kathy. Kathy read about 3/4 of this book. She didn't finish it.
Okay, recently or
I don't know. I think I made her read it.
Oh.
And she got to a certain point and she just got tired of it.
Okay.
Because sci-fi is not her thing.
It's fair.
But so she was asking me questions, and I was able to accurately tell her what was going on in the story. And oh fuck, god damn it.
Yeah, I just saw that too. So we got breaking news. We interrupt this program for some breaking news. Yeah. Lunar Girl just mentioned in the chat that Philadelphia has reinstated its indoor mask mandate, the first U.S. city to do so as COVID cases rise again. Fuck.
Boo.
Just want this shit to go away forever.
I know. Anyway.
So anyway, you're watching it with Kathy.
Yeah. So, and I'm able to, like, when she has questions about stuff, I'm able to tell the story and make each mark. It's not like I think they're trying to say this, or I think they're trying to get to this part of the story. It's like I knew exactly what was going to happen. And I think that's a good marker to tell that they're being true to what the book is.
Right. And that was going to be my next question for you, is like, how close did it follow the book itself?
Well, it's it's pretty close.
Okay.
But they did skip over some important character development that I think by getting to the point they did, that character development's not going to be critical to the story. Right. They got to a logical point where like some of the character stuff, like I'll tell you right now, there was a point where Lady Jessica, one of the things that was happening with Lady Jessica was that they were sowing these seeds that she was going to be the traitor, right? So through fear and Duncan, Idaho, like they were trying to get the inner circle to be basically resentful of the Lady Jessica, and there was this whole aspect of this cold, like the Duke knew that it wasn't her, but he still like kind of played the part to try and like whoever the assassin was. So there's this like whole character line where Lady Jessica has to, you know, be the target of this basically this accusations, and that plays itself out. But it plays itself, all this stuff happens before the Duke's kidnapping and ultimately his assassination.
Okay, so and yeah, now when you say like the traitor, so you're talking about specifically that point where the little fucking bug came through the wall in Paul's room.
So that
are you talking about that part?
No, so that the seeds for that actually started on Caladan. There was more that happened on Caladan. Like so this starts like the movie starts with I think Zendaya, his character.
Zendaya, yeah.
Yeah, it's with her talking, which really that's not who's telling this story. So but I'm not going to give away who is.
Okay.
So there is some aspect of that that's a little bit off, but it doesn't affect the story at all. It's just that little bit of narration. There was some stuff in Caladan that obviously was glossed over, but I'm more curious about. I want to hear your notes and.
Okay. So, and it's funny you mentioned that too, because, you know, we get into this narration and she's given us the quick and dirty of what's going on in this world. And they do a good job of world building and kind of explaining to you like all the moving pieces, these different planets, these different houses. You've got the fucking emperor, but you know, they're spouting off all these fucking different names and everything's happening so fast that if you're not familiar with it, you're like, this is a lot of information. And I felt like
names, the Harkonnen.
Yeah, exactly. They're just spouting off consonants and like in jumbled words, and it's like, what are you talking about? So that is my first kind of I don't want to call it a critique, but I feel like a movie like this, you really do have to watch more than once. If you don't know any of the source material, if you've never read the book, this is a movie you've got to watch at least twice, because the second time I watched it this morning, everything made sense. I'm like, oh, I get it. But like through most of the fucking first viewing, I'm just sitting there going like, I kind of understand what's going on, I think. And I can only imagine, you know, some simple casual moviegoer who is maybe not even a huge sci-fi fan just wandering into this movie randomly in a theater in the South or something and comes out like, I don't know what the fuck I just watched, you know? Again, you got to really pay attention. You got to really listen to the names and everything. And it's like so many fucking moving parts, which again, after the second viewing, I appreciate so much more. And I'm like, oh, yeah. No, this all makes sense. And I really like what they did here. It just took some time to kind of absorb it all.
Well, I think too, like one thing you don't appreciate by going into this without the book is you're getting a third of the characters.
Yeah.
It's a guess, but it's probably close to being accurate. There's a lot more characters that are involved in what happens up until this point of the story.
So it feels like the beginning moves very quickly too. Like I would imagine the book took a lot longer, like before they ever left for Arrakis.
Believe it or not, I mean, there's there's stuff on Caladan, but there's not much. I mean, Arrakis is like, hey, we're fucking going, pack it up. You know, the Emperor, the Judge of the Change, all that stuff is underway already. It's not like they're living fat, dumb, and happy, and suddenly this happens. So they're already got to that point. Why? What is happening?
Oh, the chat's going all kinds of nuts. So one of my first, so as she's going through this this whole early narration, she mentions the House Harkonnen, yeah, and they're led by like Dave Bautista is one of their main people.
So that's his name is I don't know how they pronounced it. I always went with Rahman.
Yeah, but it's funny because very quickly in this film we're introduced to fucking Dave Bautista, Poe Dameron, fucking Thanos, Jason Momoa, all these Zendaya, who's like fucking everywhere right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're introduced to all these big actors like right out the gate, are very familiar actors from some big prominent roles. But yeah, they explain the story of Arrakis, the Dune world, and the fucking spice. And this is where you and I talked about before, desert planet, spice being the drug, so to speak. It's like, where have I heard that before?
Yeah.
But,
well, yeah, you heard it here first.
Mm-hmm. You know, yeah, naturally.
George, I think George took the ball on this and ran with it.
Mm-hmm. He's like, well, I beat it to cinema first, so fuck him. But they mentioned too how spice it's like a hallucinogen, but it also has healing powers. So I'm wondering, is this like an analogy for fucking marijuana?
Well, and they also
allude
to the fact that they need it for this interstellar space travel.
Right, and that was the big thing. And they said it's used by the navigators to basically find safe passage between the stars, which almost reminds me of the Thrawn books in Star Wars. We talked about the Force users that they would use to help them navigate through the stars and everything, and find hyperspace lanes, things like that. So again, as all of this is going on, I'm in my head, I'm making all of these Star Wars analogies right out the gate.
Yeah. And it's natural to do so.
Yeah. But she's telling the story, and then she talks about how one day the Harkonnens just up and fucking just leave. Just they're out. But then she's like, obviously the next oppressors will be here soon, I'm sure. So we come to the title screen. We come to Dune, Part 1.
Which before you get too far, like this is that part of this introduction that doesn't necessarily jive with how the book starts, because this narration, it's not from the point of view of a Fremen that's like, hey, I'm on this planet and here come my oppressors. Like that's not the point of view. It's valid for where we need to start in this movie, I think, to give you some explanation about what the Harkonnens are, and that they were on the planet and they were severe oppressors, and then the Emperor made them leave, and now the Atreides are going to be there. Like, okay, here's this exposition, but that's not necessarily how the book gets you there.
Okay,
it's not that's not who's telling this story.
Okay,
like I can tell you right now, what I will say is that in the beginning of each chapter in the book, you have like these quotes, right? And, we find out that, well, actually you don't find out till later, but the, Paul ends up being called Muad'Dib.
Yes, right? They did get into that a little bit in this movie.
Right.
It's like the Messiah, right? The name for Messiah.
Yeah.
From the locals there.
So, and then you'll have like this quote that'll come about, and then it'll say, from a child's history of Muad'Dib by Princess Irulan, right? So Princess Irulan is basically writing a book about
okay, so this is from the perspective of somebody in the future writing about these past stories, basically.
Right.
Oh, right. Okay.
So you'll get these like quotes of what's going on, in the beginning.
Okay.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting stuff.
Okay,
Um,
so getting back to what I was saying, like, so we got the Dune part one. So right away, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess they're making a part two. Next screen, as they're introducing Caladan, they also say it's the year 10191. So already now my mind's going like, okay, like, is that the Earth calendar 10191? Like, are these humans who were actually on Earth 8,000 years ago and are now like colonized the galaxy? Like, what's and I really started to wonder that, especially when we see fucking bagpipes later on in the movie. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure if another space faring species would also think up of bagpipes and how they look very traditional as well. So I'm like, are these, our future humans?
so when we get to the Gom Jabbar, then I'll explain a little bit some of my theory on some of that.
Okay, because I also noticed in this movie they use like specific dialogue and references too that are very Earth-like. So
Well, and they talk about like so many sols, and they talk about certain astronomical units and things like that when they're talking about being in space. And
yeah. Oh, and fucking Jason Momoa has been brought up in the fucking chat. Yes, every fucking time he was on screen, I could hear Kristen like, it's like, all right, I get it. The guy's fucking sexy.
Kathy, I will say right off the bat that Kathy was she said that he was a little bit too, like, he was just too big for being in that part. Like, he just seemed out of place. Like he was overly, like, he was just too jacked to play that part.
Wow.
And honestly, my mental image of what Duncan Idaho looks like, she's not wrong.
Right. His last name is Idaho. Idaho. That was another thing that kept me off. Like, okay, are these humans? Like, is there like a whole family of humans named after each fucking state in the United States? But anyway.
No.
So yeah, we go to Caladan, and that's the homeworld of House Atreides. Trying to get all these names right. And we start off with Paul and his mom, and already like some weird shit's going down where she's like she's telling him he's got to use the voice, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then he eventually uses this commanding voice to make her give him a thing of water, and then they're talking about like these Bene Gesserit skills, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
The Bene Gesserit. It's the Bene Gesserit.
Yeah. So
again, well, all right, I'll explain it now.
Okay.
Do you understand what that is?
Apparently, it's this fucking coven of witches that kind of manipulate all of politics behind the scenes. That's basically what I'm to understand. And they have these fucking visions of messiahs, and apparently they do special breeding too.
No, so if you think about it, they're basically like, their task, or they have been tasked with basically maintaining the purity of humanity. Right.
Okay.
So apparently, like, as you've like been traveling through, other worlds and everything like that, I guess like the being a human somehow like becomes something that you can be part something else. Right. So you want pure bloodlines that are going to sit in the thrones of the royal houses. So you have these Bene Gesserit trained women that are trained in ways to be able to like control things like what type of baby they're going to have, like, because they're supposed to have daughters, because the daughters are the ones that are going to continue to maintain these bloodlines.
Yeah, and they mentioned that early in this movie too, that you were supposed to have a daughter instead of the son Paul. Yeah,
and she did that deliberately because Leto, like, she loved Leto and he wanted a son, so she deliberately gave him a son. It's important to know that, because it was all of these other things like that transpire with the Muad'Dib and everything else, like, they happened because she decided to have a son. So it kind of like forces all these other things to happen. Right. And that's why the Reverend Mother is so fucking irritated with Jessica when she shows up with the Gom Jabbar.
Yes. See,
We'll get
and
get
again,
there.
like again, we're like not even 5 minutes into this movie, and we've
Right.
already had these words like Arrakis and Harkonnens and House Atreus, and then the voice Atreides, and then the Bene Gesserit and all this stuff, and you're just like,
Right.
oh god, you're giving me a lot of information.
If you just in your brain, if you think of the Bene Gesserit as like basically Force users,
right, and
right?
that's the link that I made there.
And like the ability to use the voice to control people, and having their they have extreme control over their body.
Mhm.
Like they made Lady Jessica seem like
Hey, it's their body, their choice, right?
Right. Obviously, make a man or a woman or whatever.
Yep.
And Kathy could, all she could do was talk about how the Lady Jessica was played by this actress who played the White Queen, who was amazing apparently.
That's the old lady from the
Lady Jessica.
Yeah, because she was also in Dexter, the show that
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what he's saying.
She's been in a bunch of stuff.
Anyway, I'm looking over here like the camera's over there. Anyway, so you have shit. What was I saying?
The Bene Gesserit controlling their offspring. My body, my choice.
No, so damn it. I was going somewhere with that, and it is completely fucking derailed. God damn it.
That's the way it goes.
Anyway, keep going. It'll come back to me.
All right, and already.
Oh no, I remember. Haha.
Go.
So Lady Jessica, they portray her as being this kind of weepy, like weak person, when in reality, like she is the strongest character. Like she is the strongest character throughout all of this. She's stronger than Leto. She's stronger than everybody. Like she commands these rooms because she has this commanding presence, even though she's not royalty. She's just a concubine. But she, because of this training, like she just commands the room, and she has just hyper awareness of everything that's happening, and like has really like these language skills. She's like a super secret agent on top of all this other stuff. The movie makes her out to be like, oh my god, and my son is getting beat up. Ah! Yeah. Like, I that's one thing I kind of didn't like about the movie, because she is like, there's a point where Lady Jessica is the strongest character until this thing happens, and now Paul is the strongest character.
Okay.
Like, and the sword falls, and now Paul is the strongest.
Okay.
But up until that point, it's Lady Jessica, and I think the movie dilutes her character a little bit, and I think it's a shame. She's in the book, she's a lot more powerful than what they're giving her.
Yeah, she definitely comes off as like pretty weak, pretty emotional in this, and not really like the strongest person in the world. So okay, good to know. Yeah, and then they have a conversation about how they had a military ceremony that they had to go to. He had to get dressed for it, and this is the point in my notes: as we're coming on this ceremony, and these ships are landing with this like entourage of the fucking emperor or whatever. These messengers show up.
It was the judge of the change.
Yes, that. When they show up, this is where I wrote in my notes, this movie is fucking gorgeous. The effects that they did in this movie are some of the best CG I've ever seen, because it's got a different feel to it where it doesn't look like CG, at least not as much as movies in the past have, because you see a lot of CG, even in like some of the more recent Star Wars movies. It's still got like too clean of a look. It almost looks plasticky, like CG ships and scenery and all that stuff. Where the stuff in this movie, it looks dirtier, grimier. It looks more real, more tangible. And I think it's just maybe a testament to how far we've come in digital effects.
For sure. I mean, look at The Mandalorian. Look at the
they did some good stuff in Mando too.
Yeah, it's almost indistinguishable what you can do now between real effects and CGI. Yeah. And these huge ships. I agree with you. There was texture there.
Yeah.
That me personally, I I think the ships were a little bit overboard, like
Right.
from the size perspective,
Okay.
but it didn't take anything away. It was just like, okay, that ship doesn't need to be that big, honestly. Like, because I mean, if it had something that big had landed, it would have affected the goddamn tidal flow, of the area.
Yeah, yeah, probably. But it looked cool. Looked cool as
It
shit.
did. I agree with you. It was visually and aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. So yeah, and basically the House Atreides. Did I say that
You're,
right this time?
you're getting there.
Yeah, they're told like, yeah, you're now going to be the rulers of Arrakis. So we've kicked out the other guys. The
Right.
Emperor has decreed that you guys are now in charge.
Right.
And not without explaining why they kicked these guys out and why this house is now in, which we find out pretty quick afterwards. At least from what I understand. Now, I also feel like a lot of what we were told as to why this change happened was probably some like surface level shit, and there's probably a lot more going on underneath, but I guess we'll find out in
Well,
the subsequent movie.
honestly, there's
Because
not
the way
much.
I'll just say the way it's explained in the movie is the Emperor started to feel threatened by the power that House Atreides had. They were very well liked. They were like leaders amongst the Empire, and I even wrote it down. The Emperor is a dangerous, jealous man.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like, at least on the surface, it's like he's like, all right, I need to fucking get rid of this house, so I'm gonna pretend like I'm kicking these guys out, put
Yep.
these guys in there, and then while they're in there, I'm just gonna fucking carpet bomb the shit out of the whole fucking place
Yep.
and kill them all and get them
Yep.
out of my hair.
That's it. Like,
Oh, okay. There is no deeper.
there's no. Honestly, it's like, here's like royal families, just like, this is just them battling it out. Like, if Atreides did not respond, then there would have been war, right? So he has to go and obey the emperor, because otherwise it would have created this conflict. So this, what they talk about it, it's just that on the surface. It's like, here's um these members of the royal court, basically, that have to be subservient to what the emperor's wishes, and unless they plan on overthrowing him,
right.
which obviously the Harkonnens have said plan,
Yeah.
so they're participating at a certain level, and the book gets into more detail, like what's going on to make those things happen. But in reality, it's the emperor doesn't like the fact that the Atreides are getting too strong, so the Harkonnen conspires with the emperor, and they fucking do their stuff against the fucking House Atreides.
Yeah. Now, and even though we're kind of getting ahead a little bit, I do have a question about that too, because the Atreides, they land on Arrakis, and it feels like they just got there. They just got there, and they're just trying to get shit set up when all of the shit goes down. Does more time pass in the book, or is it just like that fucking incident? It's like,
No,
all right, they're on the ground and go.
No, they're like, so the idea, like, Duncan Idaho goes out on the Advon team, right?
Yeah. The initial cadre.
Right. So Duncan Idaho goes out. That's true to what the book does. He goes to Arrakis to ostensibly, they know the Fremen are out there, so he's trying to work a relationship with them. So he goes out there to do that. They come back. The assassination attempt with Paul happens really quickly. The stuff with Shadout Mapes, like, that's actually, she's a pivotal character while they're in the capital.
Is she the one that's like managing the handover?
She's
that
the
name
one.
you just said.
She's Shadout Mapes. She's the one who, when they were selecting housekeepers, that's the one Lady Jessica selected, and she had the Chris knife on her.
Yep.
Right, because the narrative that the internal narrative that Lady Jessica like has throughout this is, she's playing a part of this story that the Bene Gesserit have started on this planet, right? The Reverend Mother says it, like, we've done all we can to basically set you up for success on this planet,
right,
by telling and starting these stories about the Messiah and everything else. And so she knows that she has to further these stories.
Right.
And because she has such a good she is so good at reading context clues and understanding people and language and stuff like that. Like she's able to look at Shadow Mapes and go like, I know you have a weapon on you. I know what this weapon's called because I've done my research. But it seems like it's simple, like, hey, give me a quarter, I'll read your mind type things, right?
Yeah.
So they're kind of using that, and this is kind of starts that. And Shadow Mapes, within the castle, there's a handful of times where it's really important. She becomes important for some of the things that go on in the book, whereas she's kind of a throwaway character in the movie.
Yeah, 'cause she dies pretty without
quickly.
much screen time at all in the
Yeah.
movie. So this brings me to another question. So when they get to Arrakis, we know about the Fremen, the people that live in the desert. Who are these other people when they land that are like all in fucking rags and shit, but they still got the blue eyes and they're like screaming at Paul like the Messiah?
Right.
Like who are those?
Lisan Gaib. So they're townspeople. Like it's still a city.
Right. But I mean, where did they come from? Like they're not indigenous to the planet, are they?
They could be. They're people that work in the city, right? It's just
Right.
like think of the places that we've gone, right? Think landing in, I don't know, pick I don't know, Chad. All right. So we land in Chad and we go into the city, and there's not much there, right? But there's people that live there that support whatever's going on inside the city. It's the same thing.
Okay, so you think this is
the
just
town people?
these are probably people that they brought in from Outworld, though, that have just like settled there to kind of run things.
Or it could be Fremen, or it could be people that were indigenous to that area. But so here's the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Initially, I thought they were Fremen.
No,
but apparently not.
Not all of them are like the desert dwellers. I mean, if they've been domesticated and they're living inside the city walls, then that's what. And their business is, okay, we're gonna water the fucking date palms. That's what we do.
Yeah.
The other thing is I don't know if they get into it or not. I think there is a little bit of I think they talk about it a little bit, but they don't really talk about it much. But the blue on blue eyes it's the spice.
Yeah, no, they did mention that early on in the movie. That
so just
because that constant exposure to the spice makes the eyes blue.
Right. So ultimately, everybody's eyes are going to do that.
Right.
So whether you're Fremen,
Paul's visions of himself in the future even have him with blue eyes.
Right.
So
that's just the nature. Just them, the townspeople having the blue on blue doesn't necessarily immediately make them desert dwellers.
Okay.
They're townspeople, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
But they all believe. But the stories of the Lisan al Gaib and Muad'Dib and those things all happen within there, because these legends are being spread within the people.
Right, and that's what she mentioned. She mentioned that they've been telling these tales to the locals, basically, to kind of set them up for all of this. Is the sign language pretty prevalent in the books? How the mom and Paul do a lot of the sign language to each other?
Yes, there's a lot of nonverbal communication between the members of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So between the mother and Paul, the Duke, the guards, like they have a lot of nonverbal codes and different things, so that even if there's a listening device or something like that, they can use their nonverbals to go back and forth. It is very prevalent.
Okay.
Like what happens in the Velocic or the Ornithopter when they're getting ready to go get dumped into the desert.
Yep.
Like, and they're doing the hand signals. That's accurate to what the book is doing. That's how they're communicating, because Jessica's obviously taped up.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get to that part.
Sure. Yeah. So we had the part where they tested Paul with the Reverend Mother, and he stuck his hand in the box. What's in the box? Apparently it was pain.
Yeah.
But we had that whole sequence, and then right after that,
You understand what's happening there? Like this is
So-
important,
Okay, so she puts the needle to his neck,
right?
makes him put his hand,
Gamjavar.
makes him put his hand in the box,
Right.
which basically causes him like a shitload of pain apparently.
Right.
And she is basically testing him. Can he like not use his human instincts to either like pull his arm out of the box because he's gonna fucking get killed at that point? Can he like stay there and not just be like an animal and just like run on instinct?
So this is a test to see if he's human.
Right.
Right. This is ultimately a test to verify whether or not he is, basically of human born. Right.
Right.
So if using the animal analogy, like if he's going to chew his own arm off to fucking get
To get free
to
from
stop
the
the
trap.
pain,
Yeah.
then you're obviously not pure of blood, and they're like, okay, you don't mean anything to us, and boop, you're gonna be dead.
Yeah.
And Paul really fucking like the attitude he gives the Reverend Mother, not nearly as much as the attitude. Yeah,
Sorry.
gross.
Thanks for that one, Helmet Fire.
Yeah, it's what was the fish smell from earlier? So yeah, it's this human theme that keeps going over and over and over again. The human theme and the bloodlines, they're going to be really, really important as we get into part 2.
Okay.
These themes are going to be important.
All
But
right.
he's basically this is the test, right? Are you like ordinarily a woman would be going through these tests. So for a male to do it, it's been done, but it's very, very rare.
Yeah.
And for him to be able to do it doesn't necessarily prove he's the one, like
Mhm.
Matrix style, but it does prove that he has capabilities.
Right.
So, like, okay, you've taken your first steps. And this also too, like the Reverend Mother, she's almost as fucking bitchy and cunty as the one in the book is. Almost. Like she's pretty much there.
Yeah.
But the separate ship landing in the forest and doing that bit, that's kind of the movie stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, the Reverend Mother, she's basically she's the Emperor's truth sayer.
Right.
Right? She has this position. And
yeah, I even wrote that down too. The truth sayer to the Emperor.
yeah, which is a big deal, right? Because you hear the Harkonnen soldiers talk about it later.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the Ornithopter.
Well, and that was the thing too, like, because there was another scene later on with the Reverend Mother where she's with the Harkonnens. They're planning like
Right.
this fucking obliteration of the Atreides, and so she was in on it the whole fucking time, I guess. Like
Well,
she knew all this was going to happen.
So the movie is leading you to believe that she finds out the plot and basically goes to the Harkonnens and says, "Hey, I know that." Basically, is like, "Look, I know you're going to fucking do this, so leave these two out of it. Like,
Yeah.
let these two live
Mhm.
because I've got plans for them."
Yeah, yeah.
And then he goes like, "Oh yeah, I'll let them. I won't kill them."
Right, and then it's like, oh,
Right.
well, we're gonna still make
Right.
sure that they die, but whatever.
Have we gotten to that part yet?
To what were they?
Where
dump 'em out of-
she fucking meets up with him in his dispenser. The Baron, like the part where she actually like our first introduction to the Baron, really,
Oh,
with Rahman and the Baron.
yeah, I don't remember where that was exactly, but that that was after they had the meeting with the Emperor's fucking army, where it's like
The Sardaukar.
yeah, where we need like 2 legions of your troops or whatever.
Yeah.
And then after that, it flashes to that scene, I think, of her and the 2 dudes from the Harkonnens.
Yeah. So the Baron is the fucking fat one.
Yeah, yeah.
And the obesity, the reason that he's fucking floating like that is because he's too fat to stand on his own legs. So he has these suspensor. It's a suspensor
Is
system.
that the thing attached to his spine and all that?
Yeah.
Is that what all that is? Okay.
Yeah, it's basically so that he can fucking like be upright. Otherwise, he'd be too fat to support his own body.
Now, one thing I did notice. Actually, you know what? I meant to mention this earlier. So for a movie about like space colonization and all of that, something that we don't see at all are aliens, like actual aliens. It seems like everybody that we've seen throughout this are all just different offshoots of humans,
Mm-hmm.
right? So is that intentional? Do we ever see aliens? That's something that kind of made me think a little bit. But even like these guys, the Harkonnens, and especially the Baron or whatever, like even though he looks like grossly mutated and all that, he's still a
Right.
human at the end of the day.
He is human.
Yeah.
Yes, because he is of royal blood. He is a human.
Right. And then all of the Harkonnens, they're all bald. I noticed. Even
Right.
like it looks like the women, you see some very strange looking bald people throughout their society as we see flashes.
And one thing that they haven't put into the movie for probably good reason is the Baron is a fucking giant like pedophile, like
Oh,
pervert,
shit.
right?
Really?
So there's Rahman, who is one of his nephews, and he has another nephew that he's like that he basically keeps around for like eye candy,
Mm.
right? He's just this young kid that he's like grooming the one kid for taking over the throne, whereas Rahman has been like he's led Arrakis before,
Mhm.
like as a hard ass, and when he goes back to Arrakis, like he's going back as saving them, but
Mhm.
really he's going back as the governor.
Right.
Because the Baron has nobody else to send, so there's like this whole thing.
Hmm.
The other
Okay.
thing that's out of the development of the story. You know what? I'll save that. Keep going because I know
Okay.
you're gonna have a question about something, and it'll give me an opportunity to explain it.
So this was the point where after we get the box test and all that, where you have this long scene of them leaving Caladan and then getting to Arrakis. That whole sequence of them all taking off and then all landing was fucking just gorgeous to watch. The score playing in the background, like that whole like 10-minute sequence or whatever, just had me fucking in awe. That was one of the scenes that really fucking grabbed me as I'm watching this movie. And again, we're only like 20 minutes into the movie at this point. It's still really early on. And you have points where he's going through training, like learning about like the inhabitants and the worms, all kinds of stuff going on. Then I have the handmaiden interview in here. And then so the dragonfly ships. Like,
Right.
what were your thoughts on those? It's kind of a unique.
Ornithopter?
Yeah, it was kind of a unique concept, but I mean, obviously they're fucking dragonflies. They're like
Yeah.
big fucking space dragonfly ships.
So I love how they look.
Mhm.
I love how they presented them on screen.
Mhm.
I feel like that's wildly ineffective.
Impractical is what I was thinking. Yeah.
I think my biggest issue is that's not what I envisioned from the book was more like how the movie with the blue aliens,
Avatar.
Avatar. You know how those ships were? They were like almost like they were like a tilt rotor type ship.
So I've never seen Avatar, so I can't really speak to that.
I'll Google Avatar ships, but anyway, think tilt rotor like CV-22, right? You've seen the fucking tilt rotor.
Yep.
So I was thinking more like an enclosed, almost like a drone type tilt rotor with the encased fucking fans that would fly like that.
Mhm.
That's what I had envisioned. But because they called it an ornithopter, and I think they wanted to have like this flying characteristic of like an actual flying animal.
Mhm.
So, and then they came up with this. My biggest thing, because Kathy asked me about it, and I think my biggest thing was like, how the fuck, like, it's got to be so power hungry, right?
Oh,
What are you
yeah.
using to power this fucking thing?
Spice.
Yeah, right. Like, all right, let's pour some fucking spice in there.
You refine the spice, you throw it in there.
Your doc's gonna go get some trash and fucking shove it into the fucking Fusomatic.
Right. So yeah, I just thought that was worth mentioning. I kind of agree with you. Very cool aesthetically, very impractical.
Right.
In practice. So yeah, we have the handmaiden interview, the assassination attempt that we talked about. Then we were introduced to the Imperial ecologist. I can't remember what her actual name was, but immediately I recognized the woman who's playing her because she's the same woman from Rogue One. She had like one line of dialogue in Rogue One towards the end when they're on Yavin 4. And Jyn Erso's meeting with all the rebels, and she's like, "We can't destroy the Empire. What choice do we have? We must surrender," or some shit like that.
Right.
So,
Like she was one of them in the crowd.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
funny. I was trying to piece together where I'd seen her before. I knew it was in Star Wars.
Yeah, it's weird that I could point her out from like one fucking scene from
just
from
one
Rogue One.
annoying throwaway line.
Yeah.
She is. That is portrayed as a male in.
Oh, really?
In the book.
Oh, okay.
And she does a fine job, but that character is far more involved in what happens up until this point. Like you're getting like in this 2.5 hours, they're condensing so much that happens, like with some of the politics that goes on in Arrakis before the the Harkonnen come back with the purge, and the involvement in the Sardaukar. You have what's his nuts? Shit, the hell's his name? The fucking
Poe Dameron?
No, not Poe Dameron.
Thanos? Jason Momoa?
No, fuck. Anyway, it'll come to me later.
All right.
But anyway, it's damn it. I can't remember.
Okay.
Let's press. It'll come back.
So this is where we're introduced to the still suits, which all right, so I've got a thing.
All right.
I'm very disgusted by bodily fluids. Like when I see people spit or, I think about just like sweat, things like that. I just don't like the whole idea of like bodily fluids and just easily just like when they brought in the fucking the Freeman dude and they all spit on the fucking on the fucking table. I'm just like, Brr. And so she's talking about how this fucking suit like collects all the fucking sweat and everything, and then they drink it back up through a straw. I'm just like, oh god, that's fucking disgusting.
I want you like, you know how they get water on the International Space Station, right?
Do I want to know?
They recycle all of their water. So basically, it's scrubbing moisture out of the air. So like any perspiration, any type of bodily fluid that could be in the air gets scrubbed out. Any urine that goes into a recycler, like all of those fluids get recycled into potable water.
Well, thank God I'm not an astronaut.
And because that's what you have to do to survive.
Gross.
And you think it's the same environment, right? It's out in the desert or out in space. You're in this like extreme hospitable environment, in an inhospitable environment, and
well, it's like I get it. I understand the purpose, and I can appreciate where they went with this item and this whole plot device, but just me personally, I just find it disgusting.
Yeah. Well, the still suits themselves are obviously a huge part of like the Fremen's advantage, right? Because their ability to exist out in the desert and recycle their fluids.
Yeah.
What you don't get in this part of the movie is how like ritually important the water is. Like you're getting a glimpse of it with the spitting, right? The spitting part is trying to tell you that, okay, by giving up water, that you're like, this is a big fucking deal. Even that little bit of water, that's a big fucking deal. That's like throwing $100 on the fucking table. Right. This is more valuable than currency because that's life basically that you're throwing and expending. So it's a big fucking deal. And that's going to have huge implications later. At least in the book, like things like, well, I don't want to ruin anything for you, but
Okay.
I will tell you that water is currency.
Oh yeah, no, and you get that like throughout the movie, and even when they come across the Fremen, like way at the end of the movie, and they're like, "Tell us one reason why we shouldn't just fucking kill you for your fluids right now."
Right.
Uh, and speaking of which, when what's her name? The fucking what I say her name was the fucking chick that gave them the suit, the ecologist.
Leah
When
Kynes.
when she gets stabbed, uh, later on towards the end of the movie, like it's fucking water that squirts out, and like she's like bleeding water. Is that from the suit, or is that like the fucking like her blood is like
I I think
clear?
it's from the suit. Like the suit's
Yeah.
got to store water somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, because it was fucking weird. Because I noticed it the first time I saw when they fucking stabbed her, and it's like you just see clear
Yeah.
liquid shoot out, and then she's on the ground, and like the clear liquid is like pouring out, like she's
Yeah.
bleeding it or something.
Yeah. That's the like the implication's the same. You know, by losing her life's water, she's
Mhm.
dying. You know,
Okay,
it's there to give you the same visual.
yeah. From here, they want a demonstration of the harvesters. This whole sequence I thought was really fucking cool too, where Poe Dameron and his son and everybody they get into one of those fucking dragonflies and fly out to where a harvester is because they want to see it. Which the fucking transports for those things are wild too because they would fly up, they would clamp on, and then just boom. These big fucking balloons would like instantly inflate. I'm like, whoa, that was fucking weird.
Yeah, I was actually pretty cool the way they did that.
Oh yeah, yeah. But yeah, it was very very crazy visually seeing that. But yeah, they go out and they see a harvester, and they see one of the fucking worms coming, and this is the sequence where the lift comes and it can't grab it, so now they have to fucking evacuate these 21 crew members from the fucking harvester like as fast as possible before the fucking worm gets here. This whole sequence was super intense, really kind of edge of your seat, and then again just very like awe-inspiring. I'm just watching this whole thing unfold, just eyes agape, just wanting to see what the fuck's gonna happen. And then mixed into all of this, Paul's on the surface fucking having fucking visions and hallucinations from the fucking spice, and
Right.
they have to fucking drag him out at the last second as the worm fucking gets there. And what they did visually with the worms too, as they're moving in the sand and they get closer and closer when they're right there, it fucking looks incredible.
Yeah, I think the way they represented the worm sign, I think they did that was pretty cool. I
Mhm.
think everything is probably amplified one or magnified 1.5 times from the movie.
Oh sure, yeah.
From what I envisioned in the book, just from a size perspective, I think everything's just a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Paul's visions with when he does have issues once he gets exposure to the spice, but
Yeah.
that particular thing I don't recall happening in the book. The big takeaway from this, from the book's perspective, and I think from the movie as well, is you're supposed to. This is why Liet Kynes basically helps the Duke, and helps Paul and Jessica
Hmm.
because he's willing to sacrifice himself. He's not like, oh fuck, shit's going bad, let's go home.
Right.
He's
No,
like,
he's
no,
like, let's get these guys out of here.
I don't care about the spice. Let's get those people, throw the shields out and everything else. Like
Mhm.
he cares more about the people, and it's kind of it's very cheeky in a way, but it's important for that character development because Liet Kynes up until this point is very anti Atreides. Like he or she, and for purposes of this, is basically looks at the Atreides as the same as the Harkonnens and has no reason to believe that this is how they're going to be until he
Okay.
puts his life at risk to save these people,
Hmm.
that he doesn't know that really, and to like the amount of spice that was given up and the value of that spice.
Yeah.
This is where, okay, here's the turning point, and this is why Liet Kynes ultimately brings Paul and Jessica into the siege with the Fremen so that they can survive.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen without that scene.
Now, from a personal standpoint, that whole sequence where the four clamps can't all get onto the thing, that's just bad engineering. Like, if you can't go with 3 of 4 clamps operational, then, you need to go back to the drawing board and,
I mean,
build a little bit more redundancy into your systems.
right? They speak to it when they finally get back to the to the city. We're talking about how the Harkonnen basically left them junk.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
all the equipment that they got left is all fucking shit wagons.
Mm-hmm.
And
There was even like some allusion to the fact that they also might have sabotaged a lot of the shit on the way out too.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, we know. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then they also
sucks
said,
to suck.
Yeah, and machinery in the desert doesn't work very well either.
Yeah.
So, all right, I think this would be a great time to actually take a break. What do you think, Dave?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, well then,
excuse me.
yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna take a very quick break and then finish up Dune after this very quick word from our sponsors. All right, so I will entertain the chat whilst Dave is gone, but then I have to go too. Let's go back. Oh my God, Helmet Fire, you killed me with some of your earlier chats. Yeah. The Dead. I don't know what that's in reference to. Fuel cells. Oh, did we ever get confirmation for sure about whether or not it was a same-day release on HBO Max? And if it was, I'm assuming you had to pay the premium to see it still, right? Somebody let me know what's up with that. Got a text message. Reactor. Talking about gross vaginas. Okay. Kathy thinks Paul's adorable. I could see that. Now, they referenced him as like looking very young. Like, I didn't think he looked that young. Like, he looks like he's in maybe his early 20s. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a poor judge of age. Okay, it was same day release as HBO Max. Okay. And I'm assuming you still had to pay the premium for it. Same day, and was included in the price of HBO Max. Okay. Well, that's good. Then yeah, we'll bring that up when we come back from the break. But now I'm gonna go pee, so I'll be right back.
What were you talking about? I should have probably asked before. If I could turn this down a little bit, just a little bit. Is it still lit? Okay. I got this for the setup here at home. I got one of those ring lights, and I really like it because it sharpens up the image here, but there's this fucking circle of light that's like permanently in my vision right now. That's fucking horrific. So I turned it down a smidge. Maybe that'll help. Blah 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 blah. Same day was included price, man, no extra cost. Yeah, we get I don't know if Jason spoke to it, but we actually we have HBO Max through AT&T. So I guess AT&T gives you get like one free subscription service with your with your, how you doing, as much money as you pay fucking AT&T and Verizon, you should get something. And we used to use the Spotify and get free Spotify premium, and then when HBO Max came out and it was available, we just switched it over to HBO Max. So that's how we were able to watch it.
All right, I'm ready when you are. Just do a countdown if we want to get started.
Yep. Let's click here and now.
And we're back. So, before we get back into the movie itself, I want to talk about and clarify the whole HBO Max release date thing. So, the chat helped us out during the break, and they mentioned that. So, it was a day one release on HBO Max, confirmed. Also, included with the price of your HBO Max subscription. So, that had to have been a hell of a deal, and obviously that had to affect the box office numbers too. But I would imagine it gave them at least a bit of a bump in their subscriber base. And then General Chernobyl mentioned afterwards it was only a limited time that it was available for free on HBO Max, and then it went off for a bit and then came back.
Yeah,
probably around the time of the digital release, I would think.
Yeah, because that's how I watched it. It was through HBO Max.
Right, that's how we watched it this weekend too, because we may or may not have a relative who has an HBO Max account who may or may not have given us their credentials. Which, by the way, after perusing HBO Max whilst having access, there's a lot of shit on there.
Yeah,
a lot of good shit on there.
So during the break, I was broadcasting to the chat that we had with our AT&T cell phone subscription, whatever. You get one free subscription service with it. Like, so for years I was using the Spotify Premium, and then I kind of flipped from that to do the Apple Music. Yeah. How you doing? So we switched that to the HBO Max, and it was totally fucking worth it. I mean, not just this alone, this movie, and there's so many good titles on there. Totally fucking worth it. I mean, it's HBO. Let's face it. For somebody that grew up with HBO for reasons, yeah, it's HBO's got good stuff. It's got good stuff.
Indeed. I could like go through the long list of like cool shit that they have on there. But either way, just wanted to clarify that, clear things up, because I know we were not 100% sure of what the hell we were talking about at the beginning.
You weren't 100% sure. I knew.
Right. Well, you weren't really speaking up much, so
I
had to get some help from the chat. But anyway, so kind of picking up where we left off, we mentioned, I think, we had the evacuation scene where they evacuated the crew of the harvesters. And all throughout this, fucking Paul is having all kinds of crazy visions, mostly about Zendaya, but a lot of just like very quick flashes of things, a lot of like imagery of knives and somebody getting stabbed, like blood all over somebody's fucking hands. You know, it feels like they're kind of leading you to believe he might be seeing something, but there might be more going on behind the scenes. So I'm taking all of these visions at face value at this point. Because you get all kinds of weird imagery here. And I'm like, okay, how much of this is kind of deception and bullshit and like not really happening? He's very distracted. So I'm not really putting a lot of stock into any of these visions because he's having visions all over the place. In fact, I might as well talk about it now. So towards the end of the movie, he has a vision of this guy, one of the Fremen, telling him like, "Oh, I'll teach you the ways of the desert and everything." And is that the same guy that he fucking duels right at the end of the movie? Because it looks like the same guy. It is the same guy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Jameis.
Okay, because he fucking kills him. So you never have that scene where he's like talking to him like, "Oh yeah, I'll teach you the ways of the desert and all that stuff, kid."
Well, while they were getting ready to spar, he does say some of those pieces of dialect.
Oh, he did?
As they're encircling. Right? I haven't watched it twice, but I do know that, like, out of that sequence, I think we'll wait and talk about that because that's very important as we get to the end of the movie. But or the end of part one anyway.
Yeah. Now, throughout all of this as well, it seems like fucking Poe Dameron and the wife and even Paul know that like they were set up to fail and that they know that they're about to get, the shit fucking kicked out of them.
Yeah.
You got the sequence where fucking Poe and what's her name, the wife, Jennifer, you said? Is her name?
Jessica.
Yes.
The lady Jessica.
Yeah. So Poe Dameron and Jessica are going to fucking bed, and you get this feeling like he knows that they're like within days of fucking getting invaded and fucking killed.
Yeah. And like I said, in the book, it is days because there's like dinners and there's setups. And remember how I said that they saw the Lady Jessica, they were trying to paint her as being somebody who couldn't be trusted. So
Right,
there
right.
was all this build up with that.
Yeah, which none of that was here.
And then there's like an entire scene where Duncan Idaho comes back with the Fremen, and at a dinner he gets super fucking drunk and calls out Lady Jessica, and which clues her into something that's going on with some of this deception, like that Thufir Howard, and they're they're trying to basically paint Jessica into a corner so she'll give herself up, like for her to make a mistake. So she basically goes and confronts the situation. Again, she's the strongest character in this book,
right?
Up until a certain point when Paul becomes that character.
Mm-hmm.
But in these situations, she's in there and she's taking control of those scenarios.
Yeah.
And you don't get any of that in this at
Nope.
all. So, but I get it, right? I get it. Like, if you told that part of the story also, you'd be an hour and 45 minutes into it, and you wouldn't be very far along.
Indeed. So we had a line of dialogue during the scene where they're all going to bed, where Oscar Isaac, what's the character's real name? Is it like Leto or something?
Leto.
Where he tells Jessica, like, I should have married you.
Yes.
And that was the first time for me where I realized, oh, they're not actually married.
Yeah.
And she's referred to as a concubine later on. What is a concubine?
It's just somebody that the fucking royalty bangs and they have kids.
Okay, I kind of figured that's sort of what they meant by that. I'm just,
but he didn't have a like a duchess, right? He was the duke, so he didn't have. He wasn't married,
right?
So Paul, that's Jessica is Paul's mom.
Yes,
but he's like, anyway, you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's weird because they act like husband and wife, and then this is the first time that you realize, oh, that they're not actually married. So what's the whole family structure actually like here?
So the book expounds on the fact that Jessica and Leto have this like really loving kind of relationship, and that Leto yeah, I don't know why I do know why Oscar Isaac is naked in that particular scene. But anyway, God damn it.
We're talking about the family structure of the concubines.
Thank you. The Duke needed to try and get a royal, like the idea that if he didn't take a wife, that if, like, say another house had a daughter that was available, he would be able to marry and combine those families, right? So it's this whole thing about the royal structure that if he had married Jessica, that would have basically not made him available to, continue like and join royal houses.
Yeah, and totally get it. And the interesting thing too is much later on after the invasion and everything, Paul even mentions that the emperor himself has like daughters, and alluded to the fact, oh, maybe as part of making the peace, I could marry one of the daughters, kind of thing.
That's important. That's an important line for later. And they're kind of like spotlighting that.
Yeah.
More so than what they did in the book.
Okay.
So it's like, yeah.
Not subtle at all.
No,
all right.
Not subtle.
Fair enough. And then, of course, the invasion begins. And this is another one of those just fucking epic sequences. As, you got some shit going on the ground where the shields get lowered, and then you just fucking this massive invasion from space. And you've got both ships landing, troops landing on the ground, but also these like fucking weird bomb-like things like dropping on those massive fucking ships
and
buildings.
So there's important things here, okay? that I don't know if they'll get into later or not, but the houses have atomic weapons, right?
Oh,
So one of the things that their concerns are, if they basically, there's this Cold War that happens where if one house uses atomics, that they're worried about they'll use them against another house.
which makes a lot of sense if you think about when this was written in 65.
Right.
Where,
So
yeah,
you
that
have
was a
this
huge concern.
Yeah, so you have this Cold War with atomics. So in order to, like, basically the Harkonnens were like, well, we're not going to attack with atomics, and they can't use other weapons because it'll, like, being in the desert with the shields and everything, it'll fucking attract the worms and everything
Yeah.
else. So they're using basically traditional, like, howitzers and oh fuck, I can't think of the terminology for it. But basically they're using traditional, basically regular fucking ammunition
Yeah.
to do this. So what you're seeing is, like, as shit's kind of coming through the shield, like, it's coming through because the shield is there to protect against, like, las guns and other weapons, not fucking projectile weapons.
Right, right.
So they're using projectile weapons because they know it'll be effective, and it's plentiful. Nobody's used, like in the book, it talks about how nobody's used projectile weapons in centuries. So they drug out these projectile weapons to use against them because basically they're showing that, hey, we don't want to, basically, if they had, because of the way the shield is, if they had used, you know, certain guns on the shields, that it would create this effect that would have been catastrophic. So,
and I'm sure they still wanted to salvage some of the city as well. You know, they didn't want to just fucking carpet bomb it into oblivion.
I don't think the Harkonnens really gave a shit, to be honest.
Oh,
And there's a lot of stuff that's in the castle that they were in. Like, there's a whole, they alluded to it with the date palms. They're like, oh, hey, here's these date palms that shouldn't be growing here because it's a desert.
yeah.
There's a whole fucking apothecary in the middle, like a secret room that had all these fucking trees and fruits and flowers and stuff. That was basically the previous occupant also had, like, a Bene Gesserit that had set it up in there as, like, and left her codes that said, hey, find this spot. Really interesting, but they don't touch it at all.
Yeah, well, they did show that those sacred Jedi palms were all fucking ablaze.
Yeah,
during this whole invasion.
Yep, no, fuck you and your palms.
Yep, no, they fucking torch those.
But yeah, anyway, so the big parts about that is the projectile weapons. So those big chunks of explosions and shit like that.
Yeah,
that's because they're using projectile weapons. Now, are they going to talk about that later? I don't know if they will, but that's definitely a part of it.
Okay, well, that's good. Good to know. But yeah, it's probably one of those things that they didn't have to really explain. Like, you can just, like, as you're watching it, you can just kind of take it in for what it is, and not even have to know the background, because it was still a pretty fucking crazy sequence. This whole fucking invasion. Then you get into these crazy hand-to-hand fucking battles.
Right. Do you understand who the Sardaukar are?
There is that the Emperor's, like, army.
Right.
Yeah, like his special elite forces.
Right.
Yeah.
The Sardaukar, they show up, and it's almost like immediately known to the Atreides that Sardaukar are there. They are not as, they're more veiled as showing up as Harkonnen soldiers in the book. So the Emperor is not trying to reveal that Sardaukar are going to be part of this invasion. It's supposed to be just between the Harkonnens and the Atreides.
Right.
So, but the Sardaukar being involved, it's discovered because Duncan Idaho, as he's fighting them, like, oh, these techniques, this is not Harkonnen. And we were fighting against Sardaukar. So they discover that they're fighting against Sardaukar, which immediately means that the Emperor's involved.
Right, because in the movie they just distinguish him by the different colored uniforms.
Right. It's like, it's automatic. Like, you say, here's Sardaukar, here's a prison planet, and that has a whole thing on its own.
Yeah, what's up with the fucking the? I guess they're like harvesting blood because when you go to that
Yeah, that
planet, when
was
they
weird,
first
man.
they got those guys like basically tied up fucking upside down, and there's blood like streaming
Yeah.
down those fucking slabs.
That was fucking. I have no idea where that came from. That surprised me as much as
Oh,
it did
really?
Kathy. I'm like, I don't know what that's about. That was creepy though.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
fucking.
I guess it was trying to make the Sardaukar as inhuman as possible.
Mm,
The big takeaway there is that these guys are the apex predators. The
yeah.
Sardaukar, like they're going when they show up. It's fucking SEAL Team 6 showing up to wreck your paintball party.
And they made that apparent too. Like they had them swoop down a couple of times and fucking just kind of shit wreck the whole
Yeah.
arc. What's their names again? Atreides
Yes.
soldiers.
Right.
Sorry, still getting used to all the names and everything. Obviously. So throughout this, there's so much stuff we could get into detail on, but basically, yeah, they fucking chicken the whole fucking house. The Paul and mom get away. Well, no, they get captured and get taken away. Fucking Poe Dameron is basically paralyzed and sent to the fucking Baron guy.
Right.
With the poison tooth. You know, you find out the doctor was behind a lot of this betrayal. But he still like gives Poe the fucking poison tooth to kill the Baron.
So
that's like a weird double cross.
So just for the benefit, and again, you don't need this backstory to understand it, but so the doctor is Dr. Yua is these doctors have the star on them, right? That means that they've been imperial bred to as they're basically like they can't be compromised. Right. This is their profession. They are doctors. They can't be turned. They're impartial. Like if you encounter one of these, it's like, okay, you're sick. They make you better. So the fact that he got compromised because of the Baron, basically taking his wife, who was a Bene Gesserit, believe it or not. Because
I don't think they mentioned that in the movie.
No, they don't. Because that happened, right? He throughout this entire thing, like he is obviously distraught, and you don't pick that up in the movie. Like you don't. There's indications that he's the traitor by his actions or inactions, through this. But because he's the doctor, people look at him and go, he can't possibly be the traitor because he's the doctor. Even though it seems obvious that he is, because he's the doctor, he can't possibly be the traitor.
Right.
And then ultimately it turns out that he's the traitor. And the Baron, this is like a big thing for him because he's like, I compromised the guy who could not possibly be compromised. Like I'm the shit because I fucking did that. And he brags about it. Like when he fucking brings the Duke in, it's like, you see this motherfucker? I did that. I fucking compromised the guy that fucking could not be compromised.
Yeah.
And look where it got
immediately fucking killed him too.
Oh yeah. He's like, well, that's what happens. His wife is dead, obviously. So you can join her. Soup and fucking, cuts him down.
Mm-hmm. And then Poe uses the poison tooth. Of course, it didn't kill the Baron. Like I guess he had enough sense. I guess the shields protect you from poison gas too.
No. So what happened in the book? Again, I apologize. I know way too much about this. If you haven't picked up on this, this is the most I've ever talked about anything ever. Right?
No, man, I'm happy for your insight.
So in the book, this doesn't happen in the castle, right? This happens on the ship, on the Harkonnen ship.
Okay.
And they're in a room. It's like a conference room. And the Baron
was Poe naked in that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because the Baron's a fucking pervert, right? So he wanted Leto to be in the most compromising position possible, right? So, which is why he was naked in the movie.
Yeah.
But this was in like a conference room, and there was a secret room, like how the Baron came in. There was a secret room on the other side of this conference room. So when it happened, when he blew the tooth, right? It was the mentat. It was the Baron's mentat was kind of in his face, not the Baron when he blew the tooth apart. The Baron saw it happening and was able to get into the secret room and shield himself before the poison got to him.
Okay.
And then had to fucking wait until the room was cleared out and everything else. So, but the one of the nephews was in that room. They got killed, and his mentat, whose name is fucking escaping me right now.
The guy that goes to the Imperial Army planet.
Yeah.
And is like, telling them, hey, you need to give us, 2 legions of your soldiers or whatever.
Yeah. So this is the other part of the story that we kind of don't get out of the movie is these mentats, like the fucking the jovial fat guy.
Goes better. Freshness mentats.
the the white bearded guy that whose eyes go white when he's like thinking.
Yeah.
Like, those him and then the other guy, the fucking pasty white guy with the fucking the lip tattoo, whatever. Those are mentats, and they're basically like like highly trained thinkers. They're like Mensa level fucking mentat and Mensa. It's not a coincidence, right?
Yeah.
They're basically highly intelligent. They're basically bred to compute all scenarios. You can't. The idea is that when you have a mentat, like whatever's happening, they're able to run every possible scenario to make sure that you're in the best possible position, right?
Yeah, they seem like military strategists.
Yeah, but it's not just military, it's political, and it's all this other stuff, right?
Okay.
Having a mentat is supposed to be like a measure of protection.
Okay.
Leto's mentat, they show him as being an old guy, right? And then they show him as he failed because they took the attempt on Paul's life.
Yeah,
that happens several times. Where Thufir tries to resign because he's fucking old and he shouldn't be doing this shit anymore. The Baron's mentat has a huge fucking drug problem, right? So think of a dude that's fucking strung out all the time, and he's like with the Baron because, come on, baby, come on, I'll suck your dick.
Come on,
right?
Sign the treaty, baby.
Yeah, that's basically, you have a mentat that's like chemically dependent, and the Baron manipulates him, and the deal, like, because this mentat knows that he could very easily fucking overtake the Baron and all the Harkonnens. Like, he has the information and can do it. And the Baron knows this too, but the Baron kind of controls him with drugs and offers, like, hey, you're going to get the Lady Jessica. Like, when all this goes down, I'm going to let you have her. Right?
Speaking of going down.
Yeah. And that's what he wants. Like, that he wants the Lady Jessica for himself. He wants the Bene Gesserit. So there's just like whole side story about that the Baron uses to hang along. Anyway, they make those mentats like not even part of the fucking story.
Yeah, they're both very briefly in it.
Because Paul has mentat qualities as well as the Bene Gesserit stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's he has that strategist like development. They were like developing him in a mentat like school.
Okay.
As well as the Bene Gesserit stuff. So he's kind of like he's the one. He's got all the shit.
Sure. So there was one line that was mentioned as the Baron is talking to Poe Dameron, and he calls him cousin at one point. Did you catch that? Like,
yeah.
Are they actual cousins?
Well, yeah,
or?
It's royal relations. Like, they all stem from the same bloodlines.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
They're cousins.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, okay.
It's not a spoiler. They're related.
Yeah. No, and I guess it makes sense. You think about, like, I know you weren't a real big Game of Thrones person, but you talk about all like the intermarriages between all the different families in Game of Thrones, and it's like, okay, that would make sense. So yeah, we had the sequence where they use the voice while Paul and Mom are captured, which I thought that was actually a really cool sequence where Paul finally he got it and he did the command, and then they like cut the mother's gag, and then she did more commands, and it was a really cool sequence. But then afterwards, she like chastised him, like, "Oh, your pitch was off" or something like that, as they're
Yeah.
fucking cutting themselves loose,
No,
which is pretty
and
funny.
that's actually that whole sequence is pretty true to the book,
Yeah.
right? He kind of wakes up. Uh, he uses the voice while she's being like in a compromised position, like getting ready to be raped when like all that stuff goes down.
Mm-hmm.
I like how they had the deaf guy in there,
Mm-hmm.
like, and it's funny too because it shows that the Baron was smart enough to know that like this, Jessica is dangerous because she can manipulate people just by using her voice.
Right.
So make sure she doesn't fucking talk.
Yeah,
Keep
they
her mouth.
specifically had the
Yep.
gag on. Yeah.
Yep. Keep that shit tight. And oh, by the way, I'm gonna put a fucking deaf dude in the fucking ornithopter with you. That way, if she does get loose, he can't hear her, so she can't use the voice on him.
Oh, that's clever. I like
That's why
that.
there was a deaf dude in the fucking ornithopter. So I thought that was. I'm glad that they included that in the story because they didn't like. I don't think for the casual watcher of the movie, I don't know that you've got enough invested in what the Benny Gesserit is and how they use the voice.
Mhm.
I don't think you've got enough invested to make that connection with the deaf person. Maybe you do.
I didn't even think about that until you just now
Yeah.
said that. I'm like, oh, that's fucking clever.
Yeah, but that
Good
that
writing,
was
really good writing.
yeah, that was in the book. So yeah, it was that sequence was good using the voice, having seeing the mentat
Fresh
or
goes
or
better.
not the mentat
Mentat freshness.
the doctor's diamond, like seeing the Benny Gesserit have like symbology that they'll fucking put onto things. So like, oh, I see this. I know that somebody was there. Like, so when he looks under the seat and sees that there's all right, something's there for us. And that wasn't necessarily the doctors, but it was like an Atreides code symbol or something.
Yeah.
So he knew that, hey, we've got a package under here for us.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing fucking ultimately crashes, and the
Yeah.
sequence with them in the fucking storm and all that happens in the book. This is
okay.
where Rahman is like, there's no way they fucking lived because they went into that storm.
Yeah, like 400 kilometers an hour winds or
Right.
something like that. So even before that, when they were in the first ornithopter that crashed, they shut it down when they realized, oh, they weren't in control anymore. You get this, again, awesome fucking shot of them walking out of the fucking ornithopter. And this is like basically at dusk at this point, as the sun's just starting to come up, and they come out over a dune and they're looking out over the city. And there's just this beautiful wide shot of the city under siege and some of the ships still floating in the air. Just, again, visually stunning.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I can't get over just how good this movie looked.
Yeah.
With sequences like that.
Spare no expense.
yeah, no shit. So yeah, they get to that ecological station, which they alluded to the fact that these stations were going to somehow free the water from under the dunes, which I guess we're led to believe that there's a shitload of water underground, and that was going to bring it to the surface somehow and like make Arrakis some like fucking lush vegetative planet. But when spice was discovered, they're like, oh no, fuck that plan. We gotta harvest all the spice. So to me, as somebody who knows nothing about this, it seems like we're probably gonna loop back around to that idea at some point in this series. Call me crazy, but it seems like that's gotta come back at some point.
Yes.
And I'm not asking you to tell me, but I'm just saying, like, yeah, that's
I think if you're thinking about the worms, think about the terminology that the Fremen use with the worms, think about the maker, right? When you're talking about the Chris knives and like this knife is made from the tooth of a maker. What does that mean? What does that symbology mean? What is a maker? What are they making? What does that have to do with the spice in the desert and greenery and everything else? Like there's this symbiotic relationship that it plays a huge part into how, ultimately we get this image of, and what the visions are, what that I think in this sequence when when Paul does the Jesus take the wheel bit with the ornithopter,
Yeah.
and has these sequences of, or no, it's when they're in the tent and he has the sequences of basically all of the Fremen are attacking, and all under the House Atreides banner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, he has this vision, and they're all chanting his name, and they're all fighting under his name.
Yeah. He mentioned Holy Wars, basically, like Holy Wars under the name of
Atreides.
Of Atreides, yeah.
And it's terrifying to, like, because he knows that this is the future.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so he has to deal with these visions. And I think that they did a good job with that. I think understanding, like, how do you get from, hey, you just lost everything, you're fucking wandering the desert, all you have is this tent keeping you alive, and then somehow you're going to lead warriors under a banner in a holy war. So it's pretty good.
Yeah. Chantal in the chat mentioned how she saw this in IMAX and how it was just beautiful. I'm like, oh, I'm so mad now that I missed.
I really wanted to see this in theaters. I really did.
Something happened that week that it came out, because I know you and I had actually talked about going together to see this, and something came up. I think I had a work trip come up or something that kind of kept us from going. But
I think you did. I think that's when you went out to New Mexico or something.
Yeah.
I think it was that week.
Something came up and stopped us from getting to watch it. But I'm like, fuck, I wish I could have seen this on the big screen, because, these, I feel like my, 55-inch TV in my bedroom doesn't really do these visuals justice.
Yeah. So. And we have part 2 to look forward to.
That is true.
For that.
Yep. Really quick, just to kind of finish up this movie. So yeah, they're wandering through the sand. They're found when they're at the ecological station, and this is where I have in my notes, rest in peace, Jason Momoa, sad face. He meets his end, which again, Paul saw in his visions. That's when the ecologist got stabbed and she bled water, basically.
Yeah.
We had the whole thing where they flew into the storm. Then we go back to the Baron after the whole poisoning sequence, and he's in this like nasty black Bacta tank, where he's basically healing, right? Like he's in a fluid and he's healing and all this stuff. And
from the poisoning. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was fucking disgusting looking. And the Baron himself is just a disgusting man in general.
Yeah. And he's meant to be. He's totally meant to be.
Yeah, and now he's in this fucking black goo, healing, and he comes up and has this conversation with I think it was with Batista.
Raban.
Yeah, and just nasty sequence.
You're meant to hate him. You're meant to like really like it's visceral, just like, oh my god, this motherfucker's disgusting.
Yeah. And then we get to a scene where Paul and his mom they find the suits again, and they're getting dressed. It almost felt like there was some fucking weird incestuous like sexual tension going on between the two of them, like when they were in the fucking tent, and then when they're fucking changing into the suits out in the desert. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Just I don't know, based on some like weird looks they were giving each other. I don't know.
Well, so the book, what? So
and by the way, the mom, Jessica, she looks fucking young as hell. Like she doesn't look like she's old enough to be his mom.
Well, she's supposed to. Like, I think Paul is older. Like he looks older in this movie. Like I think he's supposed to be 15.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah,
so Paul is older.
He looks like he's in his early 20s in this.
Yeah, Paul is older, and she's supposed to be like just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So she's meant to look younger. Like, and unfortunately, the desert ages her throughout the book.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that beauty is part of the whole Bene Gesserit thing. You were talking about the fuck.
I was talking about the weird incestuous sexual tension going on between the two of them.
In the tent, like, and he's having these visions, and he's like totally freaked out, and he says, "You did this to me." right?
Oh yeah.
Where the Benny Gesserit, like, you fucking did this to me. Like
Mhm.
you all like these having these visions and everything else. He's like overcome by everything.
Yeah.
And in the book, that creates like a fucking this is a hard wall between the two of them. Right?
Mhm.
They're in the movie they kind of like hug it out a little bit later,
Yeah.
but in the book they do not. There is a very like it is a cold shoulder from between the two of them
Oh damn. Okay.
from that point. And I think they were trying to give you a little bit of that, like some embarrassed, like I think what they were doing was just like a little embarrassed, like, okay, we're gonna have to get naked in front of each other type thing.
Right.
But in reality, like Paul, after those visions, was basically, yeah, look, you did this to me. Now I have to fucking be strong enough to carry the weight of all of this because of what you did.
Yeah.
And it I don't think it takes a long time for them to really reconcile that. It's their
Okay.
relationship's never really the same. And in the book, Jessica is really like for her, it's almost like she lost Paul.
Oh.
Like at this point, it's like she lost her son.
Yeah,
And
and
like she tells the story kind of in that perspective, like at that moment, like he's no longer her child,
yeah,
right?
and we didn't even mention either that the fact that she's pregnant again and he knows
Right.
it. Like he had a vision of it, and so that's something too that I'm sure is going to play a big role later on. So they
Yes.
through a
Yes, it
series,
does.
yeah, through a series of running from worms and everything, they eventually find the Fremen, and they're about to take them away when the dude that we were talking about earlier that Paul saw in his vision like challenges him to a duel, basically says, no, you're not fucking worthy to come with us or whatever. And they basically fight it out. And Paul tries to get him to just yield, but that's not how they do business in the desert. And it's
Right.
like, you got to fucking kill him. Paul's never killed anybody until now. And then just fucking finishes him off. And that's kind of where the movie ends. That's another weird thing about this movie because takes place over the first half of a book. It doesn't have the usual acts and phases that a movie has because there was no like big finale, like big ending sequence. Like the closest thing you really had was like Paul's duel with the Fremen guy, but that was really not a climactic point in the movie because you knew Paul was gonna live.
Right.
But yeah, when it was all said and done, it's like, wow, that was a weird way to end the movie. Now, again, knowing that it was only the first half of the book, it makes sense. But the structure of the movie as a standalone piece of work is very, very non-standard, we'll say, for cinema.
And to be honest, I don't mind it.
Oh yeah, no,
Because
me
I
either.
want it. I don't want them to be like, hey, let's tie this off. As a like, hey, because it's the end of a movie, let's like have some manufactured type like ending.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to do it if you want to end it at page fucking I don't what I say it was page 281, then fucking do it. Like end of the chapter, carry the body off, have some narration, and then fucking go forward.
Yep, that's
Because
pretty much what they did.
you want to now you've basically this is the end of ended like a sad hand job. Where I read that as a sand hand job initially when I saw it. I'm like,
I don't like
oh
sand.
god damn, that would hurt.
Oh, is that what she uses for lube? Is
Oof.
sand?
Sand gets everywhere. The I like how the sequence at the end with Stilgar, and that tribe. They sneak up on Paul and Jessica, and you know, Chani getting the jump on Paul, even though he's up in the thing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That is all true to form in the book. Jessica basically overtaking Stilgar, like, because he's like, fuck this bitch. Like, we don't need another woman. The kid might be trainable, but she's, we're done with her.
Too old to begin the training.
Yes. And she's like, yeah, well, fuck you, dude. And then so she, finally shows some of what she's capable of.
Right.
That's I wish she had shown more of early in the movie. And yeah, so then at that point, the challenge with Jameis, because Paul had bested Jameis and it pissed him off. Jameis is, known as a hothead.
Mm.
And this is telling you like these other visions of why Jameis was important to Paul and his vision is because Paul has to take Jameis's water in order to like in order for him to change and to be what he's going to be next. Like
Okay.
it is kind of the end of Paul and the beginning of Muad'Dib, right?
Oh, okay.
So it's symbolic that way. Like now that he's taken a life, even though he didn't want to, and Jessica does, she says a line, he's never actually killed a man. He's had all the training. And the book, he's had extensive training. Like it alludes to it, like the fight sequence with Gurney Halleck. They portray Gurney in a way that like do you even know if I said Gurney Halleck, do you know who I'm talking about?
That's Thanos, Josh Brolin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's supposed to be like an ugly, almost a troll looking dude who's got like
yeah, not quite.
Yeah, he was. It's supposed to be like, but he's like super strong and like he plays like a balisette and sings all the time. So they have him like saying like random like lines like poetry,
right?
Which is kind of making the reference to the book, but it doesn't have him as the playing the balisette and like being this leader. So it gives you like this. It's kind of like the Jason Momoa portrayal of Duncan Idaho. Okay, you have the character in here, but you're not really giving it a good shine.
Yeah. Well, it's Hollywood, We need the good looking people on screen.
And I hope that they like. I will say, spoiler alert. I think the girl you didn't see Gurney Halleck die.
No, and I actually I meant to take note of that because they specifically did not show him dying, whereas they did for like all the other major characters that died.
Yeah. So
yeah, I kind of assumed he was still alive somewhere.
Yeah. So yeah, and then the what you're supposed to also take away from the Jameis sequence is how quickly they wrapped up the body.
Well, because
started
again,
carrying the body.
Yeah, because I'm sure they wanted to preserve the water and collect it and not let anything get out. And that goes back, if you remember the Phasma book that we covered, like that seems very similar to that when their people would die on her home world, that they'd very quickly like fucking like put them into the little juicer and they'd fucking drink their corpse. And
it's exactly like that. And I think we even talked about that when we did Phasma.
I think you made that reference, which I at the time didn't know what the fuck you were talking about. But I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And keeping people's water and why it's important is going to play heavily into part 2, as I would imagine.
All right. Any final thoughts on the movie in general from your perspective, from the perspective of somebody who loves the books, read them multiple times, many years? What was your thoughts on this particular movie overall?
I enjoyed it. I think it is a reasonable portrayal of the book.
Okay.
I think that aside from the ones I mentioned, like with the characters, I think what's his nuts, Oscar Isaac as Leto, the way he portrayed it, I think was really good for the limited amount of screen time that was there. I think it was really good. I think the kid they got playing Paul, I think that's going to work out really well with him and Zendaya and Jessica. They got somebody who unfortunately I don't like. Like I said, I mentioned what my issues with that, but I think casting, I think they did a good job. Did they overcast a bit? Probably. But if you have those people that are willing to do it, I remember when we were talking about this initially when it came out, and they had the cast members like Jason Momoa and some of the other cast members were like, they love this book and we're so excited to do this movie.
Yeah, and that's the kind of person you want on this, right?
Yeah.
You want somebody who loves the source material.
Yeah, and I think overall, where the mistake that was made in 1984 with trying to do this movie was trying to do the entire story in one shot.
Oh yeah.
Trying to do this entire book in one movie, forget it.
Yep.
You can't do it justice. And the fucking, I don't know, you have in the notes, you have the Wikipedia article.
Mm-hmm.
The fucking dude who ended up writing the movie never even fucking read the book at one point.
Really?
Yeah. Like
Wow.
it was so, yeah, it was not written by a fan. And I think it was obvious that this book or this movie was done by somebody who appreciates this story.
Yeah, indeed.
And I think this is a really good portrayal of the material, and I'm really looking forward to part 2.
Yeah, and that's good to hear from you because I remember you also had a lot of reservations about this. Like you,
Oh yeah,
I think you even said at one point you almost didn't want to see it because
I've waited this long. I mean,
Yeah.
you think with something like this that I would have fucking been all over it when it first came out, and I had it on HBO Max, so I could have watched it. But I was reticent to do it. It's kind of the Rise of Skywalker fucking theory.
Yeah.
You know, just like I don't want to watch it and have it ruin my fucking experience.
That is true.
But this is, if you're telling me that a measure of a movie, like for a book that you've read dozens of times,
Mm-hmm.
and you tell you that a measure of a movie is my vision of it is not so severely different than what was portrayed on the screen, I'd say that was pretty damn good.
It's a good sign.
Yeah.
As far as me, again, from the person with zero exposure to this, I also really enjoyed this movie. Though, again, like I felt like I was drowning in all of these names and references that I had no idea what the fuck they were talking about. And it wasn't until that second viewing with the subtitles on, by the way, the second time I watched it this morning, I had to turn the subtitles on so I could see everything that they were saying, because a lot of times too, it seemed like they were either whispering or mumbling their fucking lines. And it was kind of hard to make out what the fuck they were saying anyway. So you throw in that with all these other fucking words that I've never heard before, it made it difficult to follow and understand sometimes. But I didn't let that take away from the overall experience. Still loved the fucking movie. Visually, it was great. Storyline, I appreciate where they're going with the story. Obviously, I have a very incomplete view of where they're all going with this, but I appreciate what they're doing. I can't get over how visually and audio stunning this is. And I'm looking forward to the next one too. And we got to see the next one in theaters.
Absolutely. Without a doubt, I think it's a must see in theaters.
Yep.
You know, they've already established what the standard of the quality of the film.
Yep.
So there's absolutely no reason to not see it.
Indeed.
In the theater.
And that is that. So, do you got anything else Red 5 to read before we close this up?
Oh, I have all kinds of stuff to read.
All right. Well, let's do that, and then we'll talk about next week, and then we'll close it up.
In Red 5 news, we got Red 5 people in the chat. Yeah, I see me. Obviously, we have Lunar Girl and General Shinobi and Hectolorian. Thank you to all the Red Fivers that have been in the chat tonight. It's been a busy night for Red 5 Network podcasters. After our show, hop over to After the Weekend, where they will be discussing the movie Uncle Buck. Great fucking movie.
Oh yeah,
I love that fucking movie. Such a good movie. Follow them.
Catch theaters.
Following them, catch WSTR Media at 10 p.m. Eastern as they continue on with The Road to Obi-Wan and chat everything Sith Inquisitors. At midnight on the East Coast, join S&P Late Night over on the Salty Nerd Podcast. The Red 5 Network now has 37.
Oh no, I was on the wrong tab.
I'm 37?
37 amazing podcasts in their family. There's literally everything. There's literally something for every personality. Browse through bio.link/red5. That's bio.link/red5. Or shoot Lunar Girl a DM on any of our socials. She can suggest something you'll absolutely love that is perfect for you. Totally not kidding. Yes, and you should really do that. Lunar Girl has all of that shit wired for sound.
Do it.
In the Cantina family happenings, the used and abused pod. Fuck, I talked way too much tonight. Way too much.
Clearly.
The used and abused pod reviews Ghostbusters Afterlife tomorrow. Join hosts Scott and Kim in their live chat Tuesday at their new time, 1700 Eastern, on the YouTubes.
Is that streaming anywhere yet? I never got a chance to see it in theaters. I really wanted to.
Yeah, me too. I heard it was good.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
All right.
Tune in tomorrow at 1700. And Scott and Kim will tell you.
Alrighty.
On Wednesday, ATSW The Escape Pod will fuck, dude. God damn it. On Wednesday, ATSW The Escape Pod will be reviewing The Big Lebowski.
Oh,
Another
what a
great
movie.
Another
Oh my
great
God.
fucking movie. There's dude, that like sidebar, the fucking John and I went on this like White Russian kick.
Because of the movie.
Well, not just because of the movie, but it just kind of like happened to work out that way.
Uh-huh.
And oh my God, my developing lactose intolerance like kind of like went full bore after that. Like holy shit, it was so bad.
Like mixing milk and alcohol. What could go wrong?
Dude, it was so bad. Man, I got a beverage. That'll be a good episode. So
Yeah.
join Dondella Snooch, Brady Big Lovin', and Dragon Buddy in their live chat at 1900 p.m. Well, it's 1900, so obviously it's p.m. Eastern on YouTube. On Friday, you can join Lunar Girl, the Merciless, getting her Sith on with 97 Bravo, General Shinobi, and the Mandalorian on Star Wars: The Old Republic. The Jammy Marathon session. God, it's such a weird thing to read.
Yeah.
This sequence.
Which, by the way, I watched them last week. It was fucking hilarious. Mostly listening to Lunar Girl and Chantal trying to like figure out what the fuck they were doing.
The Jammy Marathon session will begin at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time and end around 1700 p.m. 1700. The gaming session will be live streamed at 97 Bravo. That's 90, the number 7, Bravo. Pop into the live chat anytime and say hey. The Orange and Fett Show released episode 25, The Boise Fry Company. Subscribe to them on Spotify and give it a listen and be notified of upcoming releases. Big Sweet has been revamping his studio. Chat with him on Discord. Follow his studio updates on Instagram. Check out some of his hits of the quarantine sessions at Sweet Studios on YouTube. And the champ is back. Subscribe to Layman's Terms on YouTube and check out episode 2.0, number 2, Door Dashing, and follow him on Facebook for updates.
Excellent.
The champ is here. Fucking commercial that was on constantly.
Ugh, yeah.
You can find us at bio.link/the Sidebar Cantina, where you will find our links to YouTube, audio, Patreon, and our latest Spotify music mixtape, which that was last week, right? New music in 93?
93.
93. Yeah, so that music mixtape, along with the other ones we have done, will be available at bio.link/the Sidebar Cantina and all our social media platforms, including Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, Discord, and TikTok. Also in our bio link is our T Public merch shop. We have t-shirts and hoodies in a wide variety of designs, sizes, and colors. There are Sidebar Cantina face masks, tote bags, face masks for fucking Philly, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Bastards. Tote bags, phone cases, exclusive stickers and pins, just about anything you can imagine. Please tag us with your merch so Lunar Girl can share it on the socials. Reviews.
I didn't check this week, but keep reading while I do.
Please rate us a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app or on our Facebook page. Screenshot it and DM us the pic on Instagram or Twitter. Do you love our singing? Want more acts? I don't think I act a single time. Act. People, my family upstairs is probably like, what in the fuck is going on?
We actually do.
All right.
have a
well,
new 5-star review on
all right. Well,
iTunes.
let me finish this read, and then
Yeah.
we'll get right to that.
Yeah.
Tell us what you love about the show. Luna Girl has a fresh order of stickers and would love to throw some swag your way. Don't forget, we will read your review word for word on our next episode or right now.
Or should we save this for next week and do it at the top of the show?
No, we already started, so do it.
All right. Well, this is from IMD Schmuck, which is our good friend David Schmuck, also Patreon supporter David Schmuck, a guy who's been following me and the podcast I've been doing for damn near 10 years now.
Woohoo!
I can't see the full title. The greatness of the show is, and then like the rest of it's cut off. You don't find too many unscripted podcasts anymore. Jason and Dave have a genuine friendship that shows. The conversations they have between the topic they're discussing are like clinical view of why friends matter. They diatribe, rant, and spew truth about life that will keep you listening. It's entertainment of real life, showing why we have to laugh at ourselves and love our friends for being there. That was
nice.
That was pretty deep.
That was
Thanks,
nice.
Dave.
Yeah.
Not you,
Thank you.
Dave, but David Schmuck.
Yes. Thank
And
you,
that
Mr.
is his
Schmuck.
real name, by the way.
Yes.
So
That is awesome, and he's he's active on our social stuff and great
Yep.
supporter of the podcast. So
and he's apparently got a swag bag heading his way.
fucking A.
So
Can't wait. That's awesome.
So,
Love the reviews. More.
Yeah.
Give us more
yes,
reviews.
Keep them coming.
Cold-blooded.
Next week, I think we're finally going to get into the Star Wars astronomy, an episode we've been promising forever.
We're gonna get into this.
Yeah, so
This mofo right here.
hopefully we'll be in person this time. No COVID between the two of us, and yeah, we're gonna dive deep. So if you're not a super Star Wars nerd, this may not be the episode for you, but we're doing it anyway. And should be a good conversation.
We're going to apply some really amateur fucking cosmology to the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, at least we'll do our best.
Yeah, that's what we'll do, and we'll make it up as we go because we do it live.
Fucking
And
right.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
there you go.
Do it live.
Fucking thing sucks. Yeah. Did you ever sidebar? Did you ever make those other drops?
No, I need to. Maybe
Damn
I'll
it,
do it this
Jason.
weekend.
Damn it,
I
Jason.
know. I've been distracted. All right, I've got a lot going on in my life.
Yeah.
You
should
see, you
sign
can't
up-
even deny it. You can't even deny it. You're like, oh fuck, I want to argue with him, but I know he's right. So
Yeah.
just let it go.
It's,
All right.
Whatever. At least why don't you go sign up for grad school? That'll help you.
No, thank you. If I can avoid taking a single college class again for the rest of my life, I will do that with pride. So, anyway, that's the end of the show.
That is the end of the show. I'm
Thank
hungry.
you. Yeah, as am I. I didn't eat dinner either. So, thank you, everybody. I guess this means we're not going to do an after show.
No, I'm hungry.
all right.
Sorry, guys.
Well, thank you, everybody who's stuck with us in the chat. Thank you to all of our audio listeners. You guys are all the best. And yeah, we'll see you next week. And until then, Dave and everybody else, yeah, go fuck yourself.
Okay, now what do I click?
And we're clear. All right. That's it, everybody. Thanks, Dave. We'll be in touch. I'll be talking to you probably quite a bit tomorrow to keep you updated on all the current sitch.
Yeah, man.
So
Are you oh yeah, you're still quarantined, so
yeah, good times. So we'll talk very soon. I guarantee you that.
fair enough.
All right. Good night, everybody.
See ya.